familiar with, you may not have known before, giving you a better understanding of who these people are through the countless years of research and familiarity with a lot of them, as well as the ones who seemingly appeared out of the middle of nowhere. And once again, not to stoke fear in any way, it is just to arm you with the knowledge of understanding how to sift through the noise and understand the real history of this and the government's role in that, which makes the why now and the why of every word they say, the why of their framing, the why of their narrative, that much more important to realize, so that you can be discerning and not fall victim to any false narrative or fear-based narrative that may come forth. Right now, it is subtle, but it is very much apparent in the threat-based framing of the subject matter. But nonetheless, that is what Mondays are in Nate Night Talks, is to dive into a week in review, so that if you've seen things, we can kind of dive into them and give a little backstory and explanation and more clarity on them, and what may or may not be said or implied or left out, or whatever the case may be. So, without further ado, because I forgot to say at the beginning, I'm Nate. It's late. Let's talk. We have Michael here. Michael Eklund is a friend of mine who I met strictly on Clubhouse, but he came into a room I did months ago before I even started this club, when I was just popping up doing random psychedelic rooms with silver consciousness rooms or UFO rooms. And he came up and saw he was a fellow actor, and I'm like, oh, cool, man. And then he just dropped a bomb on me during one of these rooms about his dad and his family, I guess, lineage, if you will, as it pertains to encounters with beings and whatnot. But I will let you do the full introduction. Silver did a great one and shows, I guess maybe this is just an industry thing where I didn't even, all I knew is you were verified, you were an actor. And I'm like, oh, he's done some legit shit. And that was all the further digging I did. And so shame on me for not knowing the particular show. I just knew you were on a series, but that's badass now that I've been, I guess, publicly shamed
We're
myself.
here to talk about UFOs and aliens, not aliens.
Yeah, well, hey, you know
Who
what?
cares?
It's
Fun.
still
It's fun.
it's still a good plug.
That's
And
a different clubhouse room.
it is.
Yeah.
But now I'm going to have to go, be a better friend and do better research, because I just got shamed. But nonetheless, this is Michael. Michael, give us an introduction, a little bit about you and your experience, I guess, knowledge within the subject matter, and then let's talk about your dad and crop circles.
All right. Yeah, I think you covered it a little bit. You had a room a while back. You were catching me at a time where I didn't really talk about my experiences and stories a lot. And now I'm starting to more, because I think in my own life, I'm more comfortable. And I think it was just the tribute to you, Nate, and the groups that you put together. It made it just feel kind of safe and fun to talk about. And then you call it, I dropped the bomb. To me, it's like, oh, this happened in my day. But yeah, that's how it started. And so I'll just go into it. I only have one way of telling these stories, and they can go off into different spirals and stuff. So Nate, keep me on track, because it covers a lot of what we've been talking about. But I'll try to stay on course. But I guess where it starts is what we covered. When you see your first UFO, it does change everything. At least it did for me. And for me, it was some kind of like time jumps in my little story. But I was 19, and I lived in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada, and I saw my first UFO at a paper route, and it was the winter, and I got back home and I laid in the snow and I just looked at the sky, and there's just a little dot that was flying by. I thought it was a satellite, and the dot got larger and larger, size of a dime, and then it turned into this beautiful blue triangle, like sky blue. And I was listening to a Walkman back then. For those listening, those were cassette tape recorders. And I was listening to the Beatles. And I tell these stories, there's a lot of details, so if I ramble, just cut me off. But I was listening to the Beatles. And I remember the details because it keeps it sharp in my head, because I don't want to forget any of this stuff. And when the blue triangle got over my head, my Walkman died. He went, ooh. And I just watched this beautiful, silent, bright blue triangle just slowly go over my head. And then it went back into about a white circle, and then a tiny little speck, and then gone. And then the Walkman came back on. And that's when I knew. I was like, I finally saw a UFO. And I always tell my friends, if you don't think it's a UFO or you don't know what it is, it's probably not, because when you do see it, you know it's something different. And I start the story there because that's when everything started happening after I saw it. So I've had a long history of experiences with, um, like my whole life actually, from experiences in my room to all that stuff. But the stay on course about my dad was, so my dad left when I was 5, and I never really saw him again. Just one of those dads that took off. And so then I kind of went through my life always having this interest, this fascination, this obsession with the UFO subject matter. Didn't know why, just thought it was cool, thought it was fun. Every school book report was about UFOs. I just tried to learn as much as I could, just because I thought it was interesting. And then I saw, now jump from 19, I see the first blue triangle, and there's a knock on my door, and it's my dad. So now I'm 19. He left when I was 5, and he's at my door, and he's like, "Hey, son, want to have some coffee?" And I was like, "Sure." So he came in, and he sat down at the kitchen table with my mom and me, and he just kind of looked at me, and he was. This is a story you wanted me to tell, right, Nate?
Yeah.
Okay. And he just kind of looked at me, and he was like, "How are you doing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm going to move to Vancouver and be an actor and all this stuff." And he stopped me. He's like, "No, that's not what I asked you. I asked, how are you doing?" And just the way he said it, and it was just not too long earlier when I saw the blue triangle, I kind of just knew what he was asking me without even knowing him. And I just kind of said, I know it has. And he goes, "Do you want to tell me about it?" And I was like, "Okay." And so I told him the experiences that I've started having. The triangle, then after that, there were experiences in my room and things I've seen, and even seeing entities and stuff like that. And I kind of, I'm walking over that because I'm sticking on to the dad stuff. And he just calmly listened to me the whole time. And he said, "I know, I know that's been happening." And I said, "Okay." And he goes, "Do you know what your dad does for a living?" And I said, "No, I don't know you, man." And he said, "Do you know what crop circles are?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." And he goes, "I'm the director of crop circle research for the province of Saskatchewan for the Canadian government." I said, "You are?" And he's like, "Yeah." And so I was like, "Okay." And he said, "Have you ever wondered why you had this strong fascination with the subject matter with no influence for me in your life whatsoever?" And I was like, "Well, no, I never really thought about it until now." And he said, "What's been happening with you has happened to me, and it's happened to my father and his father, and it'll happen to your kids and your kids' kids too." And he goes, "It's all normal." And he goes, "I haven't been in your life at all." He says, "I never taught you about girls. I never taught you about work. I never taught you about money. I never taught you about anything." He goes, "But I'm here today." He goes, "What are you, about 19 now?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "That's when you start to remember." He goes, "That's why I'm here today." I was like, "Okay." And then he says, "I'm here to check in with you." And he goes, "So since I haven't been in your life, I'm going to tell you 2 things that I want you to remember." And I said, "Okay, what is it, Dad?" And he says, "They won't hurt you, and they'll always bring you back." And I was like, "Well, great. Thanks for the advice." And he says, "Is there anything you want to know about my work?" I said, "Well, yeah, of course." And I said, "What makes crop circles?" And he just looked at me and he was like, "What do you think?" I said, "Aliens?" He just looked at me and he nodded really quietly. He was like, "Mm-hmm." I said, "You know this?" And he goes, "Of course I do." He goes, "We all know this." He goes, "Canada knows this, United States, all the governments know." And he goes, "But people like you, your mom, your brother, you won't ever know." Now, this is back in 1996. This is 26 years ago. What was that? Somebody say something?
No, keep going, man.
So this is 26 years ago. And so I asked him questions. I said, so what is it that you know? And he goes, well, I can tell a real crop circle from a fake crop circle in minutes. He said, a fake crop circle, the wheat or the crop is spiraled in one direction. He goes, but a real crop circle, it's spiraled in one direction. And then on top of it, there's another layer going in the opposite direction. And he goes, you can't do that with a rope and a board. And he said he can tell a real crop circle because he brings his dog, and the dog won't enter a real crop circle. And he finds animals. He's told me about that. He found animals pressed inside the crop circles, so they're like a pancake. They're hard. They're pressed. All the moisture has been sucked out of them, and they're like. So he finds raccoons or squirrels or any other kind of animal you might find inside a crop circle, and they're just pressed. And then he told me about soil samplings he does. He takes the soil from in the crop circle, outside the crop circle. He plants seeds in both the soils. And inside of a crop circle, they grow mutated. They're intertwined and they don't grow straight. And he said in a piece of wheat, there's a little node. When it goes up the stem, and it goes up a little farther, there's another little node. And those explode. So he knows that the moisture is being sucked out of them. And they form these patterns. And so I asked him, what are the patterns? And he goes, communication. I said, so they're trying to tell us something? He goes, yes. He goes, my job is to decipher what they're trying to say. And he goes, and it goes way back into the biblical times of back then. And he goes, it's all interconnected. It's all interconnected. And he goes, what was happening back then is what's happening today. Because the same stories that are happening back then in the Bible or whatever, they're still happening today. It's just that we have science now. Because back then all they had was faith. So if something comes from the sky, it's an angel. Because the same things are happening today. What do you think we're calling those today? Aliens. And he goes, and it's all interconnected. And he goes, and that's why they can't just land and go, hey, we're here. Because he goes, it will stop everything. So the questions that we brought up earlier, like, well, why doesn't the government just tell us what they know? Because it will stop everything. Because I think they're just giving us little piece of information, like we were talking, to reprogram us to get us ready for the bigger stuff, which is our whole system will change. Our whole belief system, our consciousness will all be different. And he goes, and it's not their job to step in and help us. He goes, because we're on an evolution plan where we need to get there ourselves. And he's like, if someone gave you the notes to cheat in class, he goes, you never really learned anything. He goes, that's not their job, is to like step in and just fix everything for us. They have to let us get there spiritually, consciously, ourselves, to get to a place where then we'll be included into what's really going on outside of here and out there. But we're not ready. And he goes, and who knows when we will be ready, or if we'll ever be ready. And he goes, but that's why they're here. He goes, they're here for the planet. He goes, they don't care about us. They're not going to hurt us. And I remember this really clearly. He goes, a planet that can sustain life, there's many out there. He goes, but it's very special. It's so special that a planet can have what we have. They know that, and they protect that. That's what they protect, is that we don't do anything stupid to the planet. We can do stupid things to ourselves, but if we hurt this Earth, which is a live organism, that's when they'll step in. And he goes, that's why they're here. And he goes, and they didn't come here. He goes, they've been here before we were here. He goes, they've been here since the beginning. Because once Earth had this system to build life, he goes, that's when they've been here. It just seems like they're just showing up now or back then, but they've been here before us, longer than us. And then we kind of chit-chatted about that, and then he's like, okay, well, it's nice seeing you, and he left. I never saw him again, ever in my life. He passed away 7 years ago. But what he would do is he would send me emails, and he would copy me on, went, oh yeah, sure, okay, whatever, and didn't take it too seriously. And so he asked for my email, and I wrote it down on a napkin, and I kind of went back to the hotel, and that was it. And sure enough, maybe a week or two later, he hit me up, sent me an email, and reminded me that we talked in this weird bar in Atlanta, and the stories that I told him, and asked if I would talk to him and Tom about the book they were doing. Oh shit! I switched my earbuds. Sorry, guys.
You're good.
One's ready to go. Um, and so I just ignored the first email, and then they sent me a second one asking me if I'd like to talk to them. And I ignored the second one, and then they sent me a third one going, okay, this is our third email. We'd love to talk to you about the stories that you've shared and the stuff that your dad shared with you. And I ignored the third one. And he said, this is the third and last email. We'll assume that you don't want to talk to us if you don't reply. And I never did. And then through Nate, he brought up that there's this actual book that did come out called, what was it called?
Yeah, so he drops this story on me, and I guess I mean I recently read the book. It came like a year ago, but I went to both of Tom's book signings for this. One at his actual To the Stars place, and another one at Barnes and Nobles at Promenade. Or yeah, I'm already blanking on where. And so it was like fresh in my mind. The books were incredible. Like, and there's 3 fiction, 3 nonfiction. And he says this, and he's like, and this was after he told the crop circle story. And then he brings up this story, and he's like, same thing. Mike, you're throwing it away. Like, yeah, like, I don't know, Tom DeLonge, whatever. Like, yeah, you wrote me like 3 times. I didn't respond. And I was like, what? And then I started thinking, and I was like, holy shit. Your story is in the Fire Within book. And so there's 3 fiction, 3 nonfiction books that he's written. I highly recommend you all read them because this was originally what the To the Stars thing was all about. The whole reason why he put together Lou Elizondo, Christopher Mellon, people at Lockheed, Skunk Works, and a number of other astrophysicists and people involved in this panel, or this was a part of this whole To the Stars disclosure movement of Tom DeLonge using his ability as a very prominent rock star who had a great reach to a younger demographic to basically introduce this. It was a great game plan. He put it together and brought all this stuff. And is ultimately the catalyst and the reason for those first 3 videos being released, even though now, which we talked about in other rooms, he's been, for whatever reason, shunned. Lou and Christopher Mellon have departed from him. There was no explanation of why. It's all very, very weird. But nonetheless, these books were the culmination of that. So the 3 nonfiction are phenomenal. And the first one, clearly, which is why he probably, got incredibly excited after you said it, is part of the God's Men in War trilogy, which the first book is Gods, and it's basically him. And this author was A.J. Hartley, the guy who Michael met, wrote. And he's like you didn't mean AJ. AJ is the nonfiction. You would have met Peter Levinda. But the nonfiction portion of Gods was all about the reexamination of every religion throughout time in our history under the lens of and the knowing of that aliens are real, extraterrestrial life exists, and they've been here, and now we need to reevaluate our whole history through that lens. And his co-author AJ was a triple PhD in Eastern religion, Western religion, and occultism. And so they went through all of this stuff. And so when Michael was referencing what his dad said about the historical significance of them being here, and basically this is what the religions were all about, this is what they saw, and doing the exact same things, communicating in these exact same manners through things that look very reminiscent of hieroglyphics and sacred geometry and a number of things like that. They're communicating in a language, and whether or not we've deciphered it yet, I'm sure we have. We're just not, nobody's gonna divulge that information. But I'm sure the second you said that, he was instantly perked, for one. But what Michael didn't know is I read the nonfiction books too, which were basically the approval that Tom got from a number of high up brass within the the military and the intelligence agencies, to disclose the UFO story itself through fiction books. And so it's a fictional story based around true events of what actually happened. And these things go into everything where they deal with, essentially what we call the shadow government, being this real entity, things S2, S4, pilots who are trained to try and fly these, the sport models, the same thing Bob Lazar talked about. This is all in there. This is all echoed and confirmed by the government that this happened, and how these vehicles operate under consciousness. That's how they are. That's how they're operated and flown, is by this syncing, essentially. Like, it's almost like a conscious vehicle, but it responds to your consciousness and reacts to whatever your thoughts are. All of that's in there, as well as even things like what we would call the Illuminati, the deep state, those who ultimately control all of the money, and these ancient, secret societies. Like, they're referencing there because they're very real and they're a huge power player in this whole thing. They're in this book. Like, there's all these different, key players that are within this scope. And in the second book, the second nonfiction book, they have this character that's introduced that basically is going out and investigating these crop circles, like in the Midwest. And there's this whole portion, which is actually probably, I think, one of the most entertaining parts of the second book, which I really enjoyed, that all had to do with crop circles. And I was like, dude, they literally, whatever you must have told them was enough that it gave them, and I can't say that they obviously took it, word for word. Obviously it was there, I'm sure something got corroborated, but everything that he talked about basically was within that book. And I was like, dude, they ended up using it, even though you didn't want to talk. Your story was compelling enough that he must have got the spark of inspiration, as far as, a character goes, or whatever, as a way of divulging this component of the phenomena, which is a major component. I mean, as it's a direct communication with our species, and one that's been going on as well for frickin' ever. And so, yeah, the funny thing was, is he said that when he told me that the first time, and I was like, man, they actually used that in the book. And he was like, no way.
And that's the cool thing when we talk about collective consciousness and all that stuff. Like, I really believe, like, I met you, Nate, just through this Clubhouse thing. I tell you a story that, to me, it's like, you want to hear a story? And then you have your connection of what you know, and it's so weird how everything just kind of comes full circle. You actually shed light on my own experiences, and that's kind of why we're here talking today, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And there's one part of the story later if you want to get into, but it actually involves something I want to ask Data, because you're the
and we'll open it up, because I'm sure there's some people
questions.
Who have questions. I know Scotty had something. I saw him unmute a couple times, and Silver as well. And I'm sure there are people in the audience who are probably chomping at the bit to be able to ask some things as well.
Yeah, it's a quick little subplot to the same story, and it's still connected to just these weird things that happen. Like, I was in LA during pilot season, and then I got an invitation to Stephen Greer's premiere to the first movie, Sirius.
Yep.
And he was having a worldwide premiere at a movie theater, and it was being broadcasted live on the internet and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, why did I get an invitation to this? Like, okay. I knew who he was. I was excited for the movie to come out, and I went to the premiere, and I went to the after party and met him, and got to talk to him a little bit, which was interesting. It's another little story. But then later in life, in Vancouver, we had the Olympics. And again, I got invited to this celebrity invite to meet the astronauts who walked on the moon. And back then, like when the Olympics were here, I was just getting into acting, so I was not a celebrity. But I got invited to this. I'm like, sure, yeah, I'm going to go. I want to meet Buzz Aldrin and the astronauts. And so me and my buddy went. The one that I was shining flashlights in the sky with, I brought that guy. And met Buzz Aldrin and some of the other astronauts. And I was just standing at this little high table, drinking my little drink. And this guy in a suit walks up, introduces himself, kind of like at the bar when I met that other guy. And he was like, hi, Michael. And I'm like, okay, first of all, how do you know my name? But whatever. And I was like, hey, man. And he's like, what do you do? And I go, I'm an actor. We're trying to be. And he's like, oh, that's interesting. I said, not really. And I go, what do you do? And he goes, oh, I'm here with the astronauts. I work for the Military Defense Department of something. I forget his title. And I was like, well, that's interesting. And he's like, not really. And I said, okay. And he asked me, how are you enjoying your nights? And I was like, yeah, this is fun. I got to meet Buzz Aldrin. And he's like, yeah. And I said, are you with them? And he goes, yeah, I kind of come with them. And I said, military defense. I'm like, can I ask you a question? And he said, are you going to ask me about conspiracy stuff? And I said, nope. I wouldn't even try because I know you wouldn't tell me anything anyway. So around that time, I have Hotmail. I still have Hotmail. And I was sending an email to my agent or something like that. And this is where you come in, Data. And I was finished composing the email, and I sent it, and then I went to sign out of my email. And sign out was gone. Like, where it says sign out, it was replaced in the same font that they use as sign out on Hotmail. It was replaced by the word dogface. Dogface. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? I'm like, dogface? Like, what does that mean? And so I was like, that's how you sign out of the thing. So I clicked it, and it signed me out. So then I was like, that's weird. So I went back into Hotmail, and now it says sign out. I was like, okay, I know I saw what I saw. But, I forgot about it. And a couple weeks later, I'm sending another email, and dogface. I'm like, there it is again. Okay, this is the second time. Okay, I'm not crazy. And so I'm like, well, what do I do? So I just clicked it again, and it signed me out. Saw it a couple of times, and then, phones came out, and I haven't really used a laptop much since. And so you don't really see the sign out on a phone anymore. So anyway, back to the guy at the Olympic story, and I said, I want to ask you a question. He goes, are you going to ask me about conspiracies? I said, no. I said, I'm just going to say one word to you. And he's like, okay. And I go, dogface. And he just looked at me, and he goes, you've seen dogface? I said, inside my body, I was like, okay, I'm actually getting a reply from this guy. I thought he would just say nothing. And I go, yes, I have. And he goes, let me guess. You like to research conspiracy stuff, but not like, YouTube and stuff. You like to go really deep into it and look for the good stuff. I said, yeah. And he goes, usually about UFOs, aliens, that kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah. And he kind of leaned over and he was like, you're flagged. And I go, what? And he goes, you're flagged. And he goes, there's nothing to worry about. You're not researching how to make a bomb and blow stuff up. He goes, but you're flagged. You're on a flagged list. And I go, well, what's dogface then? And he goes, just their way of letting you know that they know. I'm like, they're that cocky? And he's like, this is where I walk away now. And he goes, enjoy your drink. Nice talking to you. And he walked away. So that's my question to you, Data, is, have you ever heard of dogface? Because I've Googled dogface. I've looked for other people who maybe have seen the same thing I've seen. Never seen anything online of the same story.
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting.
You know what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. And let's try. See how to think about this. This is I'm actually I'm trying to think about how to say this properly.
Okay.
Wow. So
it's something, let me right? I've been living with this story.
I know exactly.
Nobody knows it.
I know exactly what it is. And dogface soldiers exist today. I can't speak too much on them, but let's just say dogface soldiers are they're in the background even of COVID-19 cleanup. Let's just call it that. Dogface soldiers have been around for a long time.
And I found that on Wikipedia, like a dogface is a handle for military soldiers or something. But I thought that was just a nickname they gave soldiers or something. But
right, so there are civilians that become dogface soldiers, there are civilians that that actually can work with the government, and you're bound by the same rules as you would be if you had enlisted or a reservist or things like that. Um, there is quite a bit of information available. I'm trying to think what I can send the group, and then kind of have our group look through it first to see what would be the best. This is not uncommon, though. I can tell you my own experience. That before getting in good with the government, it, the government was inside of my computer, well, my wife's computer, because they couldn't get into mine, and they left their microphones on, right? So we could hear them on the other side, actually, and yes, they were manipulating her machine, and so I kindly sent them a message and saw which port they were on, and told them, hey, you guys really need to fix your system, because I can actually hear you working, trying to get information from me. It was the
called them
silliest
out.
thing. Yeah, it was silly. And I said, look, I'm not upset with you. And I actually sent them a snippet of code where they could actually fix the code that they wrote. And that was that. And after that, uh, some alphabet boys came to see us. I think Joe Cat can attest to this, because we were working in my warehouse, and we had some alphabet boys come over, and hey, what's going on, and yeah, but this is not this is a real thing. This is a real thing. Um, it's kind of a play, right? Like you've been played with a little bit. It's not often that this happens, and it's not often that it happens with what happened to me as well. And it's not often that they come visit you right afterwards. And if Joe Cat wasn't there, I don't know if it would, if I could even prove it, right? But not only did they come once, they came several, many times, and so from there, we formed this connection. But this is a real thing. It does happen. As far as being flagged, though, look,
That's just what that guy said when I said the
yeah,
word dog face, and he asked if I'd
yeah.
seen it, so I assumed he was talking about the email thing.
Yeah, so this is interesting because like Edward Snowden talks a little bit about this, which I don't want to go into Edward Snowden itself, but he talks about the government programs where the things that you type in, the things that you search for, get put into a database. And what year was this?
Oh boy, the dog face. I was in Vancouver. I was already acting, so I started in 2000. I'm gonna guess 2008 to 2010.
Okay, it's about the right timeline. So, this project that even Snowden was working on was just kind of coming out into the open. Well, not out in the open fully yet, right? Of course, but they were just testing, playing, right? So, the other thing that is dog face or pole face. Is some of the things that you'll see, the manipulations, just easy little things, right? So, changing the words on your browser, super, super simple, not like actually going into, Microsoft's, servers and changing it, getting on your browser and then changing the words just, from going into the HTML properties of your browser, and then, changing from there. Very, very simple to do, but it's a game, right? To see what, hey, you found something really good, like, way to go. It's a compliment, right? It's a compliment.
And for me, it's like I get why somebody would go into your computer because of what you do, and they're probably curious. Me, I'm just this kid who wants to be an actor, and I'm trying. But then I thought about my dad would send me that shit. He'd send me those emails about things through his work and whatever, and the people who were copied on those emails were like people with I assumed his job, and I was blank copied. So I was like, maybe that set something off. Something connected to the dad, and
I definitely thought
it could be. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just kind of agreeing with Michael, because when he was saying the story about the emails, I actually thought to myself that was like oh God, I wonder if he was ever flagged for that. Because I mean, obviously it's sensitive information.
Yeah, probably. I gotta say this: the idea of being flagged is something that I don't want it to be something that it scares anyone, right? Researching this stuff is not going to get you flagged, right? I will tell you that. I will guarantee you that anyone that tells you that you're going to be flagged just for researching is giving you the wrong information. You will not get flagged researching this and learning and educating yourself, right? If you have some information that is beyond the norm that the algorithm is going to pick up, right? That is in this other let's just call it another database that is not available to the public, right? And the algorithm is parsing through all of this data that you're getting. At that point, you're still not flagged. Okay? If you continue to go back and look at what was sent you and read it, and every time that you open it, you're still not going to get flagged. All right? But it is at the point where you save this information somewhere else, or you archive it, or you move it somewhere, or something happens that you do so, you make a copy of it. At least an archive equals a copy, right? If you're looking at something that was moved into a different folder in your email, is a copy, right? Then at that point you will you'll get on a flag list, but you have to have specific information, right? It's too many. We don't have the resources. I say we, as the U.S. government doesn't have the resources, and I'm not going to confirm or deny that I work for them, but I do work with them. If anybody wants to confirm this, you can get on HackerOne.com. I am the number 8 hacker for the Department of Defense. I am, and you can see this, right?
You dog-faced me, didn't you? You're dog-faced.
It was
No.
it was data. That was why I brought you two
Yeah,
together.
yeah,
I
yeah.
figured it out.
So you,
I was going to touch on that a little bit and say that data in general, like I remember specifically, all his stuff was being slowed down, like everything that he was working on. And he was like documenting the process of like communicating with them through his like terminal and like going back and forth. And I even remember when you were telling me like the first time they were listening, I was like, how do you even know it's them? Like it could be anybody. And he was like correlating the servers to where everything goes back to. And it's super interesting stuff. Like I've met them in person, but not beyond that. He's always like the first one to report things to them. And I think one of the crazier ones that we realized recently was like the whole thing with Apple, something that's public, but you wouldn't actually assume is actually a big deal. But there's always more information that's being gathered on us than we're aware of. Let's put it that way.
yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
you can't tease that Apple thing without giving a brief.
I'll let him. I'll let you do it. Data, do your
Nah,
thing.
yeah, you mentioned it, so you get thrown into this fire.
Nah, you know what? I don't know what I should and shouldn't say, so I'll let you talk about
But
it. I don't know how much you don't
Yeah,
want to say.
yeah. So
worst case, back channel it. We'll decipher, and
yeah.
then we can
Let's
present it in the next room.
No, absolutely. And again, I don't want anybody to be scared to look this up. You're not going to get in trouble looking this up. You're not going to be looking any links that Nate gives you, any links that I give you, any of the mods, anybody that's up here. You will not get in trouble for looking at that. I get stress though if you see FOUO, CUI, things like that. Don't share it, but you're still not going to get in trouble for looking at it. Most people don't know what to do with this information anyways. Most people looking at this it's your own edification, things like that. And a lot of times, even if here's the thing, if you don't have some sort of a tie, if you don't have some sort of a let's just say influence or background or reputation, in this sector. So if you're just someone that's looking at something, and even if you share it with someone else, it's not going to put you on a list. There's specific people that are on lists because they're already on lists. There's people that will get on a list if you make yourself get put on a list. Honestly, I got to tell you this. I submit a lot of things to help national security, but there's things like in my Twitter where I mentioned we can send money to anyone in Maryland's in a prison system for free and nobody cares, like things like that. Like nobody cares. You think that you get put on a list or something, right? But it's not important enough. Like giving free money to inmates because of a vulnerability in the system, no one cares. So it's just what it is, So you have to do something pretty drastic. So I'm Data.
Yeah, and again, you know more about this stuff than I do. That's just this. I just repeat the story that happens. That guy who I don't even know who he is. Maybe he was bullshitting me. Who knows? But that's just what I remember.
But there's something. So obviously, as Data confirmed, there is something to the dog face thing, and maybe the reason for you getting it is once again who your dad was. If you have these type of ties anyway, like rest assured, not just the Canadian government, the U.S. government would be very well aware of whoever works in these unacknowledged special access programs, and if he had that interaction with you, like I mean, and everything, like there would be reason more so for you, especially then at that time entering, even earlier in your acting career. But the trajectory of something like that, where if you're going to have the possibility of rising to prominence and be influential, as well as then having this type of firsthand information as it pertains to this subject matter from your own father, then, that could be in and of itself enough. That's just, I mean, you're not the dog face. That's the only thing I'd be confused about why they would do that. Maybe it's just, was your dad alive at that time?
That's a good question.
If he was, maybe it was him.
Yeah, that's easy.
Maybe it was him.
That's Olympics.
Maybe it was your pops
I don't think he knew
leaving you a
I
breadcrumb.
don't think he knew computers that way. He was just a simple guy who researched crop circles. But maybe, who knows? I'm still trying to. There's so many mysteries in my own stories that I'm still trying to piece. But that little piece, Data, you helped me a little bit.
So let's do this. We are now at the top of the third hour, so I'm going to do a quick room reset, and then I do want to open it up to questions for everybody. I mean, I'm assuming that the original topic of the room right now probably pales in comparison to the awesome story that Michael just shared, and so I think if we keep our questions more to that topic and what he discussed, and what Data brought up as well, I think that's where we should kind of go from here. We'll continue in PTR order with it. I will check, if any of the mods have something to say before I kick it down. I'll go with you first. But for right now, this is Nate Night Talks, UFO Government's Disclosure. A week in review. Every Monday we do this room to basically catch you up on the last 7 days of disclosure, what's been going on, the why of it all, the why not of it all, essentially with our vast experience and my 12 years of research in this phenomenon. Each of the moderators who are up here who all bring different levels of experience within the subject matter to the table. We are evaluating what is happening through the lens rather of the past 90 years within our country, and the suppression of this information and the disclosure itself and everything that's been happening with the UFO phenomenon, to give you a better idea of what is actually being said and what's not being said, and try to arm you so that you can discern what is disinformation, what is this agenda of what is taking place, to not fall victim to the undertone of fear mongering that seems to be coming out within the narrative that is highly controlled by the government now with this disclosure. Ultimately, just so we can arm all of you, not out of a place of fear, but out of a place of love. Because if you don't know these things, then you are going to be more susceptible to falling victim to, essentially the psychological warfare that is taking place in the war on consciousness that is combined with it. And so that was what we talked about for the first part. And then had the special guest today, my buddy Michael up here, and Michael Eklund, who is just got done, for those of you who have been here, telling a amazing story about his father, who worked essentially for a unacknowledged special access program, we'll call it, within the Canadian government, investigating crop circles, and told Michael some very profound things about the nature of the phenomena, how long it's been here on the planet, and his involvement with it, as well as Michael's own history with these beings, whether through abduction-related phenomena or just observation phenomena. He's been a part of it, and it's been a part of him. And so hearing the stories he's told have been absolutely awesome. And then we dove into recently the dog face stuff. And so there's a lot to cover within that. and we're going to open it up. Once again, I'll pass it to the mods first. But before I do that, because it has now been, I guess, a while in the making, I have to give a very quick shout out to my good friend and homie, Jaime, who I just brought up at the very bottom down here. Jaime is a legend and somebody who is founded the motorcycle group that I rode with, and is the incredibly talented human being who took my photo that you see here and designed the logo for Nate Night Talks, and has been incredibly kind and gracious. He's a fucking badass photographer, and I don't know, I guess what you'd call the design component of it. I'm blanking, but you're a legend. If you ever need any work when you're in LA with photography, graphic design, anything in that type of realm, he's the guy. Jaime, you're amazing. I told you one day you come in here after creating this and I would plug you and embarrass you on stage. Today is that day. Thank you for yeah, there it is. Give him that round of applause. Thank you for the photos and the badass Nate Night Talks logo, bro. You're a legend. Feel free to take a bow if you want.
Thank you. Completely unnecessary. I'll let you fall. Continue with the night talk.
Gotcha, brother. Just want to acknowledge you, man. Much love. Appreciate you, and I always got to pay it forward. You're a legend for dedicating all the time that you do to helping people. So thank you. That being said, mods, any of you guys want to ask something to Michael really quick? And if so, Silver, is that you?
Yeah. Well, Joe had his mic off first if he wants to go first.
Yeah, Joe, if you want to chime. Joe, you there?
I think
Joe?
I'm good.
Are you there? Oh, you good?
Yeah, I think I'm good.
Okay. Silver?
Michael, thanks, man, for sharing an amazing story and personal story. It's just, it's, yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much.
And feel free to ask any. Like, I'm totally open with all this stuff now and come to terms with it. And so I think it's interesting and fun now.
Awesome. Okay, so the question I really want to ask is, now, given some years and so forth, it sounded like there's some things you're kind of like, maybe I don't want to know. Have you dived in on a conscious level, whether it's psychedelics, lucid dreaming, meditation? Have you started, really exploring, what you're capable of and your familial connection to non-terrestrial beings?
Really cool question. Yes. Not with psychedelics. I try to do everything. What would be the word?
Endogenous.
Sober? Is that the right word? Just with my own mind and my own consciousness on its own. And I've had really interesting breakthroughs with that. Basically with summoning and doing that stuff. I've been doing that since I was a teenager now. So it's been really interesting that's all this stuff's kind of like a popular thing now, and there's an app for it, and there's this, and you pay $20 for it or whatever. I'm like, you can go outside and do it. But then just in my own, apartment, I'll go into it, and the like the most I can say the most recent thing is sometimes it's weird. Everybody's different, but sometimes I'm ready for it, and then sometimes I'm not. And then I feel like, okay, I'm ready. Like I'm at this age now, and then you do it, and you have an experience where you have an experience with something, and you learn really quickly. I'm not ready. And you retreat right back to when you were a teenager, like petrified, because it's now there, and then I've done that. I don't know how, like, to answer your question, how deep you can go and how strong you can connect. I think it's endless, but I know what I've done and the experiences I've had. But I know I've basically just scratched the surface of the possibilities, I think. I wish I was braver than I actually am when I actually do it.
Yeah, it definitely takes I know
Because
exactly what
it's
you're
so
saying.
weird. It's
Yeah,
like when
yeah,
you see it, your mind just like you're ready, but then it's there and then you're not. It's just like it flips you.
yeah.
You know, you can read everything you want. You can read every book you want. You can have an understanding. You can watch every interview, and then it's when it's 3-dimensional in front of you, everything changes. All that experience, all that knowledge is thrown out the window, and it's real time. And um,
I
yeah,
describe DMT as the exact same, or any powerful psychedelic. You can try and prepare and read, and people can tell you what it's like all day long, but there is no preparation once you step into that realm.
exactly.
It's all goes out the window. And I think within even these encounters, while they're in the 3-dimensional world, there's a component of it that's not here. It's a component of it that you're like where it feels like you're also dimensionally somewhere else because of the control that in a lot of these cases. I'm not sure what your specific experiences were with that,
Well,
but
for me, it was like the last time I tried to contact an entity or an alien or whatever. My problem is, and I'll say this out loud, I don't care anymore. They move too fast for me. Like it's like they're on a fast forward, like on like if you're fast forwarding a movie, they come in too quick, like it's sped up, and I've said it out loud. I'm like, slow down. My mind can't. It's too freaky because it's like a fast forward, and like it's rushed, and it's too fast. It feels like you're gonna have a seizure. Um, and that's the part that freaks me out. If it was just slow, a quiet knock would help. But it's just like when it works, it's instant and it's so quick that my mind can't catch up to what's going on, and then I freak out.
that's a great question, Silver. Scotty, Robbie, Christine, really quick, if you guys have any questions that I want to pass it down, we'll continue
Yeah.
PTR order with the audience after you guys talk. But yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Michael, thanks for sharing that story about your dad. You know, I'm not going to go into my whole story to honor the time of the room and the people that have been waiting to speak, but you and I have similar stories in that I experienced things since I was a really young child that I did not tell my parents about. But my father almost died several years ago from a series of strokes. He was in the hospital, literally on his deathbed. Neurologist said he wasn't going to make it. So I was in his room with him, and I was having recordings with him, and my father was Rosicrucian, 14th degree Rosicrucian. My family are all his side are all fairly high level Masons, tracing back to Scotland, which they still run the order in Scotland. And hey, Mike, Robbie, I'm going to mute your mic. And he it was essentially like a legit deathbed confession, to where I've never shared my experiences with anyone. Nobody, not even my parents and my father. Like, we were really close, and he taught me, from a very young age, all this occult wisdom from the Rosicrucians and the Masons, and essentially how the world works and all these things. But the one thing that he never shared with me, and I never shared with him, were these experiences. And I recorded the conversations once they started, and he had experiences when he was a child, and he started telling me about them, and they were similar. Well, his were like of the fourth kind, very, very similar, very vivid, and these experiences happened to me. I said, "Why didn't you tell me?" He told me, he's like, "Well, I just assumed that you were having these, and you, because of the things that I've taught you, and how I brought you up, exploring your consciousness, that you were able to handle them." And he again, I won't go into the whole story. I would love to talk to you offline. Maybe we could have a chat
Yeah.
about this. But it was we have really similar stories about our fathers and the experiences and how they've carried on. So I don't talk about it a lot, um, but I appreciate you sharing, and let's maybe connect on a back channel.
Yeah, we'll
But thank you.
talk anytime, and that's the cool thing about this is like you can connect with people who've also maybe had similar things, so then you can kind of piece it together or kind of have some kind of
Yeah,
something. Because
it's
I never talked
interesting.
about them either until not that long. Because I tried once or twice, and it backfired.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then I just they're for me, and I
Yeah,
carry them with
yeah,
me, and they're personal, and they just come like a part of your life. So yeah, I'd love to talk to you about that too, because it helps me too. Because if that happened to your dad, that makes what my dad told me true,
right.
right? Because he was like,
Yeah,
it happened to me, it happened to my dad, it happened to his dad, and he's like, it's going to
yeah,
happen to your kids too. And so he was kind of like hinting at, so it kind of goes down the family line or something. And I don't know
yeah.
why. I don't know why
There,
my
there's
family or as opposed to
something
another
there within
family,
family
but
lines.
I don't have the
Yeah.
answers to anything. But I just tell my stories.
Yeah, he mentioned the same thing about his dad. And the funny thing is my father joined the Navy during the Vietnam War, and he said he received special treatment all the way through, and that's how he got government contracted. He was a government contractor job for the Harris Corporation, working on like you know sensitive topics. But yeah, there's something there where there's some sort of weird generational thing. So anyway, thanks for sharing. We'll connect offline. I don't want to dominate
Anytime.
the discussion. Yeah, thanks, brother.
And on that note, actually, that's a good segue. If you guys have, things that are related to something like that, that is like something to dive into on a back channel. Just make sure we do that going forward for the people who are going to be speaking, just so we do have a large audience now. And we have been going a little over 3 hours so far. So I do want to make sure that we get to everybody who is on stage. Once again, please do. Only rules of the stage: must be respectful at all times to one another. Do not derail the conversation. Either of those things happen, you will get booted out of respect for every person who came in here to have meaningful conversation and learn and grow together. That is the only rule. Outside of that, I guess, keeping it under 2 minutes. So please, as we now, after I guess Robbie and Christine, if you guys had any questions, you guys can go really quick, and then we'll be passing it down to the audience PTR order. And I think Jeremy will be the first one after Robbie and Christine go. If you guys had anything you want to say.
Hey guys, totally awesome room tonight. This is Christine. Actually, Michael, just a couple quick comments. I want to acknowledge what you said a little bit earlier about like collective consciousness and the coalescence of people coming into these spaces and having, these dialogues and having the synchronicities line up. So I just want to tap on that as an affirmation again. Thank you, Nate, for returning Nate and I Talks to the OG version. I think we're seeing a real nice like renaissance of that. And that being said, since you guys are talking about crop circles in particular, and Michael, I'm going to ask this of you, but Nate, you can decide if you want to open that up as a potentially further, broader questions for others if they want to chime in. That I'll leave that to you to discern. But since you're talking about crop circles, I've actually wondered, and Michael, likewise, I do a lot of my own meditation myself and kind of go into spaces. And I'm not having judgment for, and this has come up in other rooms, obviously, with Nate and Silver and Scotty as well, about, people who are using psychedelics to kind of go in or break past the mind walls to access different aspects of consciousness. But like you, Michael, I do them without aid and try to do them as most presence as possible. So what I'm curious is in that space is, have you looked at the crop circle material? Obviously, there's a particular energetic quality that's in the physical space itself. But have you, and again, Nate, you can option this if you want to add this as like a layered question for others, have experienced or used this with intentionality of a meditative quality, like if we're looking at them as a symbol, so to speak, right? Have you used those as a meditative tool towards accessing any particular information? And if so, is there anything that you've gleaned that you would like to share?
Actually, I've never even really thought about that before.
That'd be the first time I've ever even thought about connecting the two.
Well, there it is.
That's a really interesting thing to think about.
Yeah. I think, Christine, you make a kind of interesting point. I was actually sending a message to the group. True crop circles, and I'll give everybody a link. It's if you get on your Google and you'll type this in, because it's generally we would tell you, well, go to this site and then type it in the search bar. But if you go to Google and you type in project space Mike dash 0531, that's dash 0531, you're going to see that this is it's going to say apps.dtic.mil, and you're going to see this document come up in a PDF form, and if you search for crop circles, you're going to see some information come up. Now, as you scroll down, what you'll find is there are images and LiDAR images and true crop circles that were identified. These true crop circles have magnetism to them. They have a magnetic resonance to them, and there are images that you can see. And this is the government contractor actually working on this project. So one thing to note is not everything that has to be classified or top secret, things like that, right? These government contractors, put out this information because they're contracted to say, well, what's happening here, right? And it speaks about the specific tools that they use to detect the magnetic resonance that they can even some of the contractors say, well, we felt this, but our tools would not detect it. So they had to use LiDAR and heat tools to actually determine how much heat was actually coming from the magnetic resonance, and then at that point they could actually see a circle, and these images are compelling. Just amazing to see that these contractors are proving out that something was here in the shape that you can actually see. And with that said, I'm sure that if anyone were to be a part of a true crop circle, I'm sure that magnetic resonance can somehow affect the you yourself, like you like everything about you. You can tap into some sort of a higher consciousness, maybe, right? Because this is a frequency that we cannot currently detect with our tools. Right, we can see the heat coming from the magnetic resonance that is left behind, but we can't detect what kind of force it is just yet. So that's a really great point.
Data, that's totally awesome. Really great, add on to that. I love that you're bringing in those details, because absolutely, yes. I mean, you're talking about like a resonant harmonic frequency, right? Consciousness is always layers of frequency. And so even if you're just working from, an image, right? You're just using the symbol itself as the image to work from, that frequency, that harmonic is still present. Like it exists on any level of that point of access. So yeah, I was just curious if anybody has been using them as meditative tools to tap into that particular frequency to look at extracting information.
I'm gonna try it now.
Yeah, and if not, then here I dropped another bomb when I thought I wasn't going to.
Thank you, Christine. Robbie, did you have anything you wanted to ask Michael before we drop her down?
I hate that I kind of logged in a little bit later. I was so fascinated by this topic, and obviously, this room is running every Monday, and I'm like, oh, Michael is on. I can't wait to be on here. So I hate to chime in with information that may have already been discussed, but just to stem off of what Christine was saying, based on crop circles, which for so long has definitely been I guess an old age situation for ufologists, right? So we sit here and we're like, oh, well, people aren't talking about crop circles anymore. But if you looked back into that, it is the most fascinating shit ever. And I'm still mesmerized by crop circles. I think that the precision is actually just as equal as if you were to read, what is it, like Chariots of the Gods books and all of those. Like, we are talking about the precision that nothing we can't emulate that as human beings. Despite our intelligence, we can't do it. We can't take two different areas in two separate parts of the world, nocturnal events happening simultaneously that are so precise without footprints, without anything, and say, oh, that was those two people that were like considered the ones that were faking it and running around. They can't possibly do that. So what all that the world of the ufologists need to have debunked is that there are two people that convince the whole world that they're able to do something, and suddenly nobody wants to listen to it anymore. But if you really look back, that would be like negating everything that we've ever understood about the precision work of pyramids versus the Mayan pyramids at the same time, during a time in our history where it was absolutely literally impossible to have any type of mechanism or design that could have ever emulated the precision of what they were doing at the same time on two separate sides of the universe, two separate sides of the globe, right? The world. So we have to kind of like open our eyes back up again. Yeah, it might be age old for us, but crop circles are fascinating. And I don't know what I just listened into, but to this day, I just watched a documentary on it. I'm not even going to name it. It's a little bit wacky, but there are documentaries that are still coming up because we're looking at the England crop circles that to this day, they're if somebody is new to this world, that is something to be very eye-opening, because I don't know how you can explain that. We stepped on, I don't know, corn husk in the middle of the night, and it was so precise from one end to the other, and that it's mathematically perfect. It's almost impossible to think that that wasn't, conceptualized by some kind of immaculate design or some outwardly experience. And I think we have to revisit some things that maybe that aren't interesting to us anymore, those that have been researching this for a long time, so that the general public that is now being more introduced into the vast majority of what they may have not otherwise believed can suddenly look back and go, hey, that makes a lot more sense. So I'm really excited about this topic. I will never let go of crop circles. To this day, I'm blown away at it. And that's like a 40-year-old thing. And I don't know, if you Google it, how can you not be friggin' amazed by that shit? I mean, even now, how can you not be amazed? Why do I think that it is no longer appearing outside of the world? Well, guess what? We didn't respond to it the way that maybe they would have thought that we should have responded. So why should they keep bothering? And I think that's where we're at right now. I think we have to understand that we're coming from a different group of, I don't know what you want to call it, extraterrestrial species. And if we did not respond to them accordingly, they're not going to keep working on the same angle. I mean, we didn't respond the way that they thought that we would have, with something very obvious in front of us. So I love this conversation. I love this topic, Christine. I was following up on what you were saying. And if I missed the boat on anything earlier, I apologize. Excited to have you here, Michael. And I love this room as always. And excited just to be here. Thank you, Nate, Silver, Scotty, Data, Joe Cat. You know I love you guys. This is Robbie. I'm done speaking.
Thank you, Robbie. Love you. We're just happy you're able to show up. It's these rooms go long, and
Nate.
as we all know who are on here, it's a daunting task to try and be on this app for all the rooms all the time. So appreciate you even being here as always. With that, I do want to now kick it down to the audience, and I do want to say, because apparently I forget these things. Without the classic room resetter Haley, I tend to lose myself. Tomorrow, just for those of you who are here, typically do the room Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Tomorrow we are going to have Dr. Morehouse here. For those of you who were here for the night he was supposed to be here, he apologized for it, and something came up, a personal thing, and he completely spaced it, which happens, so we understand. But for those of you who've been following the club for a while and been in the rooms, we did a 3-parter now on the CIA Gateway experience, which has been an absolutely incredible room, diving into that declassified document, which is all about the CIA's operations within Project Stargate and the Gateway experience, and the billions of dollars spent between us and Russia on training operatives to project and remove you to gather intelligence, to make contact with extraterrestrials, and see what Mars was a billion years ago and the civilizations up there and all this Morehouse is an author of 4 credible books. He's probably one of the foremost authorities on remote viewing, and was a member of the Gateway Experience and Project Stargate, and was an Army Ranger, did a number of work with the DIA, CIA, NSA, and a number of alphabet agencies. And we're excited to have him here. And we're going to kind of do, I guess, the conclusion, if you will, of what is now a 4-parter on the Gateway Experience. And so that's going to be tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Pacific time. For those of you who are here and would like to tune in to that, I just wanted to make sure I said it before I forgot and before it gets too late. So with that being said, Jeremy, you are up in the PTR order, man. Do you have a question or Jeremy?
Nate,
His money must not
if
be working.
can
Yes.
it's a really quick question I want to ask Michael. Do you mind?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Michael, I remember you saying in the story how you were getting recollections when you were little, and I'm assuming, based off what you said, you were feeling fearful at that time. When you went and you did the lighting experiment, I guess I would call it, can you tell me, or do you recollect what kind of feeling you might have felt? Did you feel safe? Did you feel anything extraordinary?
Really good question. That's the stuff I really like talking about, actually, because there is a feeling. Yeah, that's actually really good. With the flashlight experiment that my dad passed on to me, when I tried it, that's when I started stumbling onto how summoning works, which I know when I do it, you have to put out, for me, and you guys probably have your own way and own experiences, but for me, it's putting out that positive love, connection, purity, just peacefulness. And that night, the first night when I did it and it worked, which is what turned into learning about this stuff, the feeling I got back internally was, for that night, it was a simple hello. Just repeatedly a feeling of just, you're being seen. And hello, like, we see you and we're here always. That was that night. When, and we haven't got into it and maybe we won't, I'm not sure, when it's the experiences I had in my past with in my room, or the experiences I had with them in my room, absolute fear. But then in my mind, I guess telepathically, I heard and felt, you're okay, go back to sleep. And I would hear it, like in my mind, like a separate voice going, you're okay, go back to sleep. And I would go back to sleep. After seeing what I've just seen going on, there was a mental connection of, you're all right, go back to sleep. And instantly after, you're just so at peace. You've just seen the weirdest stuff that you could possibly, your mind can imagine. And you just give over. And I just went, okay. And I'd go to sleep. So that's the feelings I've always got, was always peace. My eyes are seeing fear because I can't comprehend what's going on. But then the feeling of everything was always peaceful. Always. It's my own body and consciousness that can't understand what's going on, which created fear. But then the feeling of it overcomes you, and it's all good. You're fine. And it was always peaceful. Never to harm. And then going into what my dad said, he goes, they'll never hurt you and they'll always bring you back. The 2 things I can pass on to you, son. And it was true. But if your mind can connect those 2 together, the 3-dimensional life and what you're feeling, I think it'd be wonderful. But that's the thing I haven't figured out yet, is experiencing it and just being in that peaceful state until it overcomes you. And I believe for me, and again, this is his own experiences, that's the feeling they're passing on to me. It's like, you're okay, go back to sleep.
Thank you, Michael.
There's a reason why they knock you out. There's a reason why they paralyze you. It's for you. It's for your own safety, I think, because you don't know what you would do, I think. But that's a whole nother thing we can get into if you wanted to.
Sorry, man, didn't mean to cut you off. You have very I mean, being an actor, the dramatic pauses sometimes they get me.
Yeah, dramatic pause.
I totally get it. I apply them a lot.
And I'm thinking too. I'm trying to put myself in those moments again to answer the question genuinely. To like, I have to go back there in my mind and feel it again.
No, I know.
So
man,
those pauses are me like going through the Rolodex of the history and going, how did I feel? Because I haven't thought about that. That's actually a question. What?
I'll talk about it with you if I can in the back channels. And Nate, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to ask that.
Anytime.
No problem. Yeah, I'm giving you shit, Michael.
Super cool to see you back, Michael. It's been a while. It's awesome.
I kind of disappeared a while. I had to get out, and then I come back in, and then I step out again.
I'm
or
happy.
It takes over. It just takes over everything.
Balance
it does have that room. Yeah, and when you came back on. That was that when you came into the room the other day. Was that your first day back on?
That was the first day.
Yeah, that was no accident.
I was ready for it again.
Yeah, that was no accident.
Because that's the other thing I'll say this. What's weird is you miss it. That's a feeling I live with all the time now, is I miss that. You want it back. It's scary as hell. You're feeling absolute fear, but I long for it. I miss it. Because you were connected to something that was so beyond normal that you don't even see normal anymore. Like, I don't know if anybody has experiences, but you just don't fit anymore. You don't fit in with people. Because it's not just about going to work and going to Starbucks to get your coffee and like, everything's changed now. You just kind of like, doesn't matter. Nothing matters anymore. But it has to, because you have to survive and have a job and live and pay your bills and stuff like that. But then above that, it's just like,
that's a whole other conversation.
That's a whole nother conversation. But so I live with that longing and missing, all the time.
That's a good point, and I think actually a subject possibly for a different room in general is finding a balance, because when you go down this rabbit hole, once it becomes your reality and you finally accept this to be true and real, which it is. I had those moments where I didn't go to bed before 6 a.m. I guess not that I really do now, but where I would be reading books and researching and diving so deep night after night after night for years straight after I made my first contact, because it changed everything. I was like, I have to live a normal life. Like, I have to find a way to reintegrate myself somewhat, and because it is so fascinating, it's so amazing, it's so transformative in so many ways, but you have to find a way to maintain that balance, and continue to live your life, because you're clearly here for a reason. We all are, and we came to this life, into this planet, and these meat suits that we're in to do specific things and learn specific things. And so there is a balance of that awareness and that awakening, and still being able to be, productive and fulfill your calling of and purpose for, this particular life. And so a good topic, I think, for a different room to find, a short one, I guess, on learning how to live a normal life while you dive into this craziness. But Jeremy, one more time, going once, going twice. If you're on stage and you are not answering, you will be removed back down. I see you have a party hat, so I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt that maybe you don't know how to unmute. Give it a sec. Jeremy, once, twice. Okay. Mary, you are up. Good to see you. Do you have a question or a comment for Michael?
Hey, Nate. Thanks so much again for this room.
Hi, Mary.
Hey, Christine. Hey, Robbie, Scotty. Really, really loving that you're consistently holding these spaces. So for me, I'm in the last 2 weeks, ever since I started seeing these spaces in Clubhouse, have started to connect my spiritual journey. And you can call it ascension stuff, where I'm feeling my gifts more amplified and I'm seeing it now that it's super connected with these galactic beings. And, I've always been super sensitive to their energy. So I feel them all the time. I've seen their ships often, actually, ever since I moved here to the island. I see the ships almost every night. I can sense them when they're going to be out there, and all I need to do is look up and look out the window and I see them. And they love to travel in threes. It's a beautiful thing. And with that said, I can go deeper and deeper into this conversation about it, but I do want to link it back up to Michael about the flashlight thing. Have you ever tried it when you have seen them, their ships, and then try that? And then also, and then Nate, you can answer to this. I was wondering, and I DM'd you on a back channel about this too, if I should try going into meditation to connect with them more, considering I see them all the time in a sense. But yeah,
Quick
this
answer
is
to that.
Mary for now.
Yeah,
Thanks.
my answer is yes on that. And Michael, you go ahead.
No, I was gonna say if that's what happens for you and you see them every night, then obviously you're in tune to some energy or connected channel with them, which is awesome. I wish I was. Um, the flashlight thing was, like I said, was the beginning of me doing, learning the other stuff. It's a nighttime thing. Doing it in the day, just without a flashlight, just through meditation and going in there, and then in the blue sky, seeing. Like I've done that 3 or 4 times, and it definitely works. Sometimes it doesn't. I don't know why it works sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't. The flashlight thing I've only done 2 or 3 times, and it's worked. I think one time it didn't work. Sadly, I was with somebody trying to prove it, but I think maybe that's what doesn't make it work, because they didn't believe in it. So I think that's some kind of connection.
It has to be a compatible frequency.
Yeah, they thought it was bullshit, so they were like, "Okay, prove it to me." And I'm like,
Yeah, no.
I was abusing it. I think like, "Oh, I'll prove it to you." Like, I'll be cool, and I think that makes it not work. So no, I haven't used the flashlight to an actual ship or UFO, if you want to call it. But in the daytime, you don't really need it. And once you kind of just do it with your own self, the flashlight kind of is just a. Because I've seen a lot of people use laser pointers and stuff like that, and I've always wanted to try that. I bought a really powerful, I went on Google and I found the most powerful flashlight you can buy. Thought that would help, but the first time I did it was a really crappy toy of a flashlight. You don't even need a really good one. So I don't really think it's not the flashlight. It's you. I think the flashlight was just a tool so they could blink back and just show you that they're saying hello, reproducing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And Mary, what you're talking about is knowing when to look or where to look just has to do with having an acuity of sense for a tone or frequency or a presence, right? And then you're able just to direct your consciousness to it.
Yeah, I'm just really highly sensitive and connected to them. I know they've been visiting and giving me gifts in a sense since I was a child. It's just amplified in the last few years. And, I know that they're benevolent creatures and that they're here to help us and to heal us and teach us how to be more powerful healers as well. So I guess, just being here in Hawaii, it's different. I had no idea that the galactic energies was so like intense over here, but I guess this is also why I was called in meditation to move here. But yeah, I know you got it, Christine.
I get it. I get it. I miss Hawaii. Tell my turtles hello until I can get back.
Thank you, Mary. I saw your DMs. I just message you. I usually don't check them while hosting the rooms, but I will definitely. I saw you sent some cool videos, so I'm looking forward to checking those out, and I'll get back to you after the room wraps up. So apologies for that, but do appreciate you being up and sharing the story and asking the question. I will definitely be looking forward to seeing those videos. That being said, I'm going to turn off hand raising here just because we've already been going nearly 4 hours at this point. And I want to make sure that we still get to everybody who is on stage, because once again, it has been uh, I just want to be respectful of all the people who are up here. We still have a ways to go of getting people in line. So that being said, under 2 minutes. Thank you.
Hey, what's up, Nate? Dope room. Michael, thank you for sharing. Appreciate everything that you shared. I know sometimes it's not easy talking about this stuff. So I wanted to kind of tie in Michael's experience to the disclosure part of everything. I had a room open in my club a couple hours ago. We were talking about kind of the same stuff. Just the idea, I think most of everybody that's in this room and listens, and it's part of my club as well, is on a certain level of consciousness that we understand that, um, this disclosure is like rung 1 or 2 of the ladder, and we're already waiting at rung 50, right? We're getting to the point where, okay, we understand that this technology is valuable. It's being powered by something off-worldly. We got to find out who's piloting these things, and then that goes into a whole other narrative. But the change of the word from UFOs as being the mainstream to unidentified aerial phenomenon is something we talked about. And that phenomenon word is what we wanted to key on, and what I wanted to key on is because it seems like even with the sightings of these things, the experiencers, the people that have these sightings, experience some kind of interaction, or it's a change that happens, a phenomenon. So it's plausible that that's the word that's being used now for people like Michael and other people that have had experiences. We have to really start taking into account who it is people are interacting with. I think it's an important question to ask, because it's not just one race, it's not just the Greys, it's multiple. And these things need to be documented and understood in the cosmology and the history of this world, of this planet, and everything else that's out there in the stars. So I feel like it's just further down the line as far as what we'll get to, and I think everyone here is probably doing the groundwork to get to that point. But for right now, I'm not super confident we're going to get a lot in this disclosure from the government. What I do hope happens in this report is that mainstream sciences kind of get that spark and really start looking at this stuff, because without them, without the skeptics joining in, I don't see evolution happening as quickly as possible. We got to evolve as a species, I think, on this planet. I think a lot of that is some of the messages that extraterrestrials are passing on to us is that, yeah, you guys need to hurry up and let's get the ball moving here, because, we're waiting. And yeah, I agree. What I mean? Like, we should be further along than we are. And there's a lot of that tied into what you spoke on earlier, Nate, as far as like how things are being hoarded, the Illuminati, all that stuff that ties into, that stuff that's been hidden and suppressed, that the world can't benefit from. So one of those things I think is cracking open what we don't know about science and physics that these things are going to teach us, which is, to me, starts with gravity and magnetism, the most natural things that happen on this planet, and they're able to manipulate it in a way that doesn't cause any kind of nuclear byproduct. Once we're able to harness this and understand this, it's going to benefit humanity. So I think we have to like really push forward and really understand the phenomenon that's happening associated with sightings and different craft that we see, but then the abductee or contactee experience. There's a whole other world with that as well. And so, Michael, I just wanted to pose the question to you. Crop circles being kind of what you were adopted into through your father and everything. When it comes to the possibility of, other than what you've been, dealing with since childhood, how do you feel about, the idea of like multiple races being out there and interacting with humans on the planet.
Multiple races of extraterrestrials?
Correct.
I know what I've experienced, and that's what I kind of stick to. The rest I read or research, I leave up to believing it or not. But I can only go off of what I've experienced and encountered. But for me, I've experienced two different kinds. So when it was a child, it was definitely the Greys, 100%. So one of my stories we got into it is I saw it. I know for a fact that was the childhood stuff. Now that I'm an adult and doing the stuff I'm doing now, whether it's summoning, whatever, it's not them. It's and you guys may even have the terminology better than I do, but human looking and tall. They're always so tall, and that's very new. So I don't know much about that.
I'm getting
That's just,
Arcturans for that for you, Michael.
is that what it is? Nocturnal,
That's just
not nocturnes.
no Arcturans. Arcturian.
Nocturnes.
That's just what I'm getting for you.
Okay, I'll have to look into that. I've heard about the Nordics and that kind of stuff, but
Arcturians was that book I mentioned earlier
okay.
at the beginning, Michael. We the Arcturians.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, definitely do.
For me, it seems like the C5 stuff for the summoning that you do, it's not the Greys. This is just me, my feeling. It's not them for me. It's the Octurans, I guess. The abduction stuff or the experience stuff from since I was a kid, it's definitely the Greys.
Awesome.
That's all I can kind of say about multiple species.
Yeah, you're kind of confirming something that I've.
And again, I don't know anything. I just have stories.
Yeah,
I'm piecing it together for myself.
You're confirming some of the stuff that I've seen in research now. People that have had abduction experiences since they were kids, like it's been not one, but like different kinds of alien races they come into contact with. So it's very interesting, and I'm very familiar with Arcturians and their lineage. They're supposed to be really benevolent and ancient race. But thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. I'll be looking forward to hearing you in these hallways as well.
Anytime.
Appreciate you, man. Samantha, you are up. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. This has been wow. I don't know about anyone else in the audience, but it's been absolutely fascinating. I do have a question, but first off, I just want to quickly say thank you for everyone, all the moderators, everyone on the stage for creating this space for people to speak out and share about this topic because so many of us keep these things secret and quiet because we don't want people to think we're crazy. And yeah, I've not spoken. I don't speak about UFOs, aliens, or what happens when I meditate to anyone apart from my partner, which my partner's always quite fascinated as well. And we've binge watched all the documentaries on Gaia at the minute, which is absolutely incredible. But I had an experience a few years back when I was meditating, and I, I did 10-minute meditation. It was by alarm, and then I came out of it, went back, did a 20-minute meditation, started seeing all these weird lights and sounds and things like that. And I've actually got my journal entry, and it was on Wednesday, the 14th of August, 2013. And it was fascinating to me because I had to write it all down. I won't go through it all. But I went back into that meditation and decided to do another 40 minutes, just doing a breathing technique, breathing in. And as I breathed out, I counted 1 and went up to 10, and then from 10 back down to 0, and then 0 back up to 10. Just kept on doing it until I went into a trance-like state. And what was fascinating about it, let me see, I even drew a picture as well. Let me just see what happened, highlight a few things. There were all sorts of colours, fluttery white lights with electricity shooting past. And it was interesting with what Michael said earlier on about sometimes, I don't know whether it's the same, but it feels like they're moving so quickly and there's so much light and so much energy that for me it felt like I wasn't ready. but I did actually write down, I saw this at my left side. It was so bright and clear for the first few seconds, which looked like a perfect outline of a figure, so white and bright, full of light, with these rays coming off it. And then flickering and flashing and asking questions to this. I actually just said, I decided to talk and ask questions like, guide me, spirit, show me the way, what is the purpose of life? And then I heard a young girl, like a young voice, say, are you going to cry? And I was like, this is a bit freaky. And then he asked another question, what is the meaning of life? Which then I heard a reply of the word meaning, which I thought was odd, as it wasn't the answer I was hoping for, and I still don't truly know what it means. And it just said, I'm pulled back, obviously pulled back to the world, to reality, which I think is real, but I know otherwise. I need answers. And I've just put like, speak soon, diary. But that was a diary entry, and I've not necessarily had any experiences like that before, apart from lots of colours, seeing lots of colours. But I do have a lot of dreams about alien invasions, and I know it sounds, well, it probably doesn't sound weird to the people that I'm talking to now. And some of them are nice, you know, some of them, but some of them are quite disturbing. And I feel like something big is going to happen soon to our whole existence, and I'm not too sure. But my question is really, I'm both scared but also fascinated and excited by this all. But also, does anyone of the panel have any sort of advice or any books or films that they could recommend to help me understand or make sense of this? But yeah, if that makes sense. But thanks, guys. Lots of love. I'm done speaking.
Samantha, specifically documentaries or books to which part in particular?
To the, well, more so to, well, both really, to the interactions with these, I don't know, like dimensional beings, higher beings, light beings, whatever you want to call them, where we go into meditation and we feel that we're having these experiences that feel so real. So maybe advice around on anything to do with that, because I've not watched any documentaries or read any books about that yet. And also about my dreams of alien invasions. I don't know what, if there's a meaning behind that, or if anyone can guide me or point me in the right direction to find out more and make more understanding of it all. Or is it just a case of coming in these rooms every Monday and just listening and learning?
Well, I would, as it pertains to the abduction phenomena, the core books that I think I always recommend, just to give people kind of a basis for it, though I would make sure you separate mentally any of the negative components associated with a lot of the experiences, because as we discussed early on in the room, more in depth as it pertains to us trying to even begin to pretend like we could understand what the agenda is of beings that are ultimately anywhere from 100 years to 8 to 9 billion years more evolution than us, because we're on a planet that's a shade under 5 billion, and a galaxy that's 13.7, and in a universe it's like 14.5 or whatever it is. So therefore, there are species that have had upwards of 9 billion more years of evolution. So who are we to even try to pretend like we can understand what their agenda is? And kind of gave the analogy earlier of taking the dog to a vet. You're doing it for its own good, to heal it, if it's sick or injured or whatever the case may be. But all the dog knows is he's going to this place where there are people wearing white jackets, and every time he goes, he or she gets hurt, or thinks that's the case, even though it's actually for the dog's own good. And it's kind of that comparison within the abduction phenomenon, some of these things as well, which a lot of people, including the Travis Waltons of the world, with the whole Arizona incident, the Fire in the Sky movie was based around, says now 30 years later that he didn't need to be afraid, and he realized his 5-day abduction and the disappearance that he had was basically for his own good. Like, they were saving him. He possibly would have died from the radiation, that happened when he got kind of blasted by the anti-gravity propulsion system of this particular craft. And he now realizes that, the fear came out of the fear of the unknown and something he couldn't comprehend. And now he realized he didn't have a reason to be afraid of it. And so books like Communion by Whitley Strieber, Abduction by John E. Mack, standing in my bookshelf. I always go through the books and things to get. And Intruders or Missing Time by Bud Hopkins are all great books as far as the abduction phenomenon goes. And the We the Octurians is just a great book. You can believe what you want out of it. It's written from a lady who's channeled basically the Octurians, and put together this book about literally all the downloads, everything they told them about the origin of our species, what they're doing here, the nature of the universe, and everything like that. That they're basically these 8-dimensional beings that are here, and in a loving way to kind of help guide the human race, and they've been here doing this for a long period of time. And there, yeah, I mean, if you're a subscriber to Gaia, I mean, there's going to be a lot of things in that. And another avenue to look into things, honestly, is anything that has to do with psychedelics, as far as coming in contact with entities and things like that, and these altered states of consciousness, or hypertropic breathing, deep states of meditation. It's that you can make contact, you can reach these beings without psychedelics. You can do deep meditation and get endogenous releases of things like DMT, and be able to transcend ultimately dimensions and make contact and kind of get the answers to these questions. But I would honestly say, as I mentioned earlier, most of the answers, they're going to lie within. You never depend on the government. You never depend on the media, or even documentaries to a case. Documentaries can be a little more helpful in pointing you in the right direction, but ultimately they're all very biased. That's the whole point of a documentary, right? Is they're trying to make a point about something, but they can be helpful. Just always be discerning with it. But through meditation and making contact, coming in contact and harmony with your higher self and that infinite knowledge that is within source in the universe, you are able to answer and get the answers to these questions that you seek. And I think a deep dive internally is always good. But reading the books that I mentioned, and other things, if there's any other mods that have a good one to throw out too, is a great way, because it stimulates your mind. It gets you thinking about things that you might have missed, and you never know what thing is going to trigger you to remember something or put together some piece of the puzzle. So we always have to be trying to gain new knowledge, new information, always be learning, always be growing. The second you think you know it all, you're regressing. And so if you're not moving
Yeah.
forward.
Nate, the Octorians book, who is that written by, please?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. It's written by Dr. Norma Milanovich, Milanovich. Norma
Awesome.
Milanovich.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
No problem. Was there something, I'm sorry, that you had that was specifically targeted for Michael as well, or was
No,
that it?
I was just resonating with Michael. It's funny because before I was talking, I felt really, really anxious and a little bit fearful. And now listening to what you've just said, I feel like, it's okay. It's okay. So thank you. Yeah, really deeply appreciate it. Love this talk. Thank you, everyone.
It's definitely okay.
Hey Nate, I'm
Samantha,
jumping
I'll
in.
just, sorry,
So,
this is
sorry,
Christine.
sorry
I'll
to
just
interrupt you
quickly,
guys. I just would like to tell before, if in case Samantha leaves, I just would like to tell you that if you channel those aliens or whatever they are, you haven't mentioned it and you seem to be unsure about the steps and everything. It is important. I would just share an advice I was given doing that stuff, to practice protection rituals. So you can look them up. You can DM me. You can ask. Very important. If you're going, down, if you have a natural ability to channel to those things, they come into your dreams or whatever. That's great. But just for your own good, protection rituals. I'm sorry for interrupting. I just don't know how long Samantha is going to stay on.
Let's be
No problem.
really, really clear. Protection is only needed from your own fear. So I don't
No,
want
I'm sorry,
anyone
Silver.
thinking
That's only your opinion. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but perhaps you're right, but perhaps not. These things can really save lives. I'm quite sure about this.
that's fair, Axel. I'll say from my experience, this is, started, I was brought to this when I was 4 years old from my grandfather, family practice. Fear is the only thing you have to be worried about, your fear, and you need to make peace with anything and everything that comes up for you. Fear, oftentimes, your personal fear, oftentimes is hidden in your body, in various places, and movement, breathing exercise, mindfulness, meditation, dance, martial arts can all help uncover these things so that you can have better access to getting more intimate with yourself on a level that transcends physical, at which time you can move past all of the need for quote unquote protection. That's my personal experience. So if that resonates with you, great. If it doesn't, then so be it. And I don't mean to offend anyone. This is
This
Silver.
is
I'm complete.
Christine. I just want a quick comment because both, I just want to synthesize between both what Silver and Axel is actually saying is both are correct in aspect in that, and I'm very much a non-dualist. So it's interesting when one is operating from a state or a particular frequency of non-dualism and unconditional love. And so a lot of what Silver is saying about eradicating or being out of fear or lack consciousness and things like that is absolutely valid. However, unfortunately, not all of us, and particularly other beings or other interdimensional, extra-dimensional beings, are not necessarily all coming from the same point of frequency as our own best, highest intentions. And so, despite my non-dualism, I have to contend with the reality that unfortunately not others are all operating from that same frequency. So that being said, what Axel is talking about, the intentions of other beings, are not necessarily all coming from that same space of best highest consciousness. So there's validity in both aspects. And then I'll just dovetail and acknowledge, Samantha, you'd asked a question about seeing good things in your dreams in terms of like post-disclosure or arrival, or then things that looked really like hostile. My feeling is that it's probably you're having a combined experience where you're tapping into collective consciousness around it. And obviously the median collective consciousness does have a lot of fear. So probably you're synthesizing in your dreams a combination of information that perhaps is your operational frequency in experience, and then having also tapping into a collective frequency where there's more fear consciousness as to why you're having the different experiences.
Wow, yeah, that definitely definitely resonated with me, Christine, definitely, because on one side I'm there's a part of me that's super excited. I'm super excited, and it makes me think as the human race, I get why they're not just saying like flying down saying hi, because I just think we're so collectively um like really I don't want to offend anyone, but collectively I'm thinking of a word, not stupid, but I get why they don't, because it's very, the planet that we look at, and as a very sensitive soul myself, is crazy. We are destroying the planet, and I get it. I get it, and I'm one of those people. I always think of the movie Independence Day, where those people are standing on top of the building with flags and signs saying "Welcome to Planet Earth." It's sort of similar to how I feel. There's a part of me that is like, welcome. I really want to interact with these beings. I really want to know secrets to the universe. I really want to engage with them. On the flip side, I have this, like you said, this conscious, this global conscious feeling that of fear at the same time. But I know it's not my fear. It's so bizarre. But yeah, Christine, thank you so much. It's really highlighted a lot for me that just then. Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha. Appreciate you being here. With that, we're actually at the top of hour 4 now. So I'll do a quick room reset so we can keep this going. Welcome, everybody. This is Nate Night Talks, UF Government Disclosure, a week in review. For those of you who are new to the club, every Monday we will do a recap of the past 7 days of everything that has happened within the government disclosure on the UFO subject. My personal 12 years plus of heavy and deep research into this subject matter is what the lens that I go through for evaluating everything that's taken place, as well as my moderators who are each specialized in various fields as it pertains to this subject matter or consciousness or hacking, and have access to very sensitive and important information to share that most people do not have access to. So we usually just recap everything that's been going on for those who are newer to the subject and are just wondering what the hell is happening, to give you a better lens of how to evaluate the information being presented to you, who is presenting it, why they're presenting it, the narrative that they're putting forth, the subtext and the subtleties of the verbiage and everything, what this means, where it's going, things to look out for and whatnot, not to put you in a place of fear, but rather to put you in a place of knowing and understanding so that you do not fall victim to any type of counterintelligence or disinformation or psyops that may be taking place within this narrative, or any type of fear mongering or divisiveness, more importantly, as that seems to be the MO of the government, especially as of late. So more arming you with these things so that you can, reside in a place of high vibration and love, and be aware of what's going on, but not affected by it. So that is the topic of today's room. We've had a buddy of mine, an incredible guy, Michael Eklund, who has shared his awesome story about his own encounters within the subject matter of UFOs and extraterrestrial entities, as well as his father's participation in unacknowledged special access programs in Canada as he investigated crop circles for the better part of, I'm assuming, it'd be 20, 30 years or so. And the things that he shared with Michael as it pertains to their family, lineage and experiences with this. And it's been absolutely fascinating and an amazing addition to the room and the recap of everything going on.
You make my life sound way cooler than it feels.
Michael, that is what I'm here to do. And so that is what's been discussed today. So we're going to continue to go PTR order of those on stage. If you have a question for Michael or a comment, please ask. Obviously, if it's something within the topic of the room itself, within the recap, please feel free to go and ask that as well. Once again, the only rule is be respectful of people on stage, and do not derail the conversation deliberately. If so, you will be removed. There is zero tolerance policy. This is a safe space to have open dialogue and communicate these things in a constructive manner that benefits everybody for the evolution and evolving of our, I guess that's redundant, mass consciousness as a whole. That being said, reminder, tomorrow night we're going to have David Morehouse and the continuation of the Gateway Experience. He's author of 4 books. He's the foremost expert on remote viewing, worked as an Army Ranger, then was a part of the CIA's Gateway Experience, and worked with the DIA and the NSA doing these essentially psyops and remote viewing. Fascinating story, fascinating guy, and it will be a great conclusion to essentially the 4-parter that we've done within the Gateway Experience. And if you do want that declassified document, if you weren't here for those first 4 parts, we will send it to you. It will change your life. It is absolutely incredible. And last but not least, if you enjoy everything you're hearing, follow the club, click the bell, because I'm terrible at pinging people, and Clubhouse does not give any type of good algorithm or programming to be able to, categorize people to who to ping for particular rooms. So I'm not good at it. So if you click that bell or click the bell on my name, you will get notified every time I do a room. Do the same with the moderators and anybody on stage who has spoken so far, who you vibe with, give them a follow. And if there's someone sitting next to you in the audience, just follow them. If you're all here and you've been here for any length of time, you're on the same wavelength, you're here to learn the same thing. This is all about building the community and the tribe, and we want to make sure that we build this mass consciousness together in a loving and communal way that will hopefully, lead to that contact, that mass contact that we're all ultimately looking for. But it starts by building that community. So follow everybody, follow yourself. It starts with you, right? That being said, we will pass it now to Sharath. Sharath, you are up. 2 minutes, everybody. Please try and keep it just so we get to everybody on. Sharath, are you there? Going once, going twice. Pratik, you are up.
Yeah, thank you, Nate and Michael and everyone for sharing what you're sharing, because it is really great, because usually I don't get to talk and have conversations like this. So basically, I'm from Nepal, and Nepal is the crown chakra of the world. So from childhood, I wanted to become a Buddha. The society kind of told me that I was crazy and I could never be one. So as I grew up, I had experiences with psychedelics, and I was also half paralyzed. And then this was a gift to me because I got to find my guru. So basically, guru is a very higher being. And since then, like, we have been working on this mission, and my mission on this life is how we can create this intergalactic relationship, because the aliens are there. So I had a lot of encounters with UFOs in meditation, in also physical world, with psychedelics and without psychedelics. So basically, they actually want to come and they want to build a friendly relation but they are not able to do it because in Area 51, around 53 aliens have been held hostage, and they have got technologies that are far more advanced that they have been keeping secret from humanity. And because of this reason, also the beings from other universes, they are not so convinced, they are not feeling so free to come and build this relation, though they have been trying in many ways in order to send the information in ways possible. And it is great that all of us, we are having experiences exactly the same. And in the current time, what we are going through is this challenge. So there are like beings from different dimensions. So these beings, basically, they are coming and everyone have their own intentions. Some might be right, some might be wrong, but everything is right in the end, because we are going through this journey, and we need this journey of relativity. However, there are so there however, like what we have been trying to do is basically ascend this higher consciousness, and we have got like technologies that are far more advanced. I have been practicing healing of different kind, practicing tantra. So Nepal is the place where basically there are 10 to 11 of these like tantric spiritual, in the subtle world, tantric spiritual entities or deities. So basically they are here. Even Satan, so Satan also, his name is Prada. So basically he also resides, he usually like comes to Nepal. He was tried to be thrown in the uh, black hole. This is the recycle bin of the universe, like over 300 times, but he came back because he was like he's a very far more like advanced being. And definitely there are Illuminati and deep state who are in connection with him, but uh, basically their intentions are different. And he finally now understands, because in our ashram there are entities, there are deities, and there are also uh, beings from other universes. So basically they also come there often in order to learn from the guru, and in order also to share, in order to exchange. So uh, deities from all religions, and definitely they don't have a religion, because they are in this universal consciousness. We have like Jesus coming sometime, we have Shiva coming. So basically like everyone is acting together. Before there was this conflict in the spiritual world between the good and the bad, but now they are understanding. But still in the physical world, since we lack this connection with the uh, spiritual world, because of this there is still this ignorance, and the consciousness is very low. So even at this time there is this COVID crisis, and in this crisis the solution is still not there. So basically Guru, he developed this new kind of technology uh, that is cosmic Ayurveda. So through this technology, he basically like demodulated the herbs, and then like
Pratik,
he
my man,
yeah.
I know you got a party hat, so I'm gonna give a little pass. I'm gonna need you. We got to keep it in 2 minutes. I want to keep it on the topic of the room. Did you have a was there a point you wanted to make within that the subject, or for something for Michael, or was there a question?
So basically it is just an invitation to people, so and like build this intergalactic tourism thing. So yeah, that was basically it, and everything resonated. So I am thankful to Michael and all of you for sharing what you have shared, and I'm sorry for taking more time.
No, you're good, Pratik. I just wanted to once I hear the COVID and stuff come out, I gotta reel things back in and make sure we're staying on topic, man. Appreciate
Yeah,
everything.
yeah. So actually like just a thing, because like uh, about this medicine. So this medicine is able to cure, and about COVID also. So they have got like different. I'm just like trying to relate it with the spiritual world, because uh, I heard saying that there is something that we believe and there is something we know. So I just wanted to share a truth. So basically, like, however, like I totally understand it. We can discuss in the DMs about this later. But yeah, we have been trying our way to organize how we can create this interdimensional relation, and I have also been researching, and I have so here in antimatter technology. So there are like many things like that. So I have got a lot of proof and everything, so that I would like to like share with the world. So I'm looking for that community and that people who can basically like help, and we can together raise this consciousness by sharing a lot of information that the world needs to hear.
Could not agree more, my man. That is exactly why we're here and exactly why you're here. So appreciate your share. Appreciate you being here and the work that you're doing well to raise that consciousness. And so, yeah, shoot us a DM on the stuff you're thinking and whatnot. And like I said, we've done some rooms in the past. We won't really go into them, but we've done some rooms on the Vedic texts and diving into pretty much all religions around the world and doing a deep dive into the history of those as it pertains to the UFO subject, as well as psychedelics and many other things. And so there's a lot to be unpacked, a lot to be discussed, and we'll look forward to it, man. Appreciate you sharing, and welcome to Clubhouse. Appreciate your patience. Moving on to Jocelyn. Jocelyn, welcome. Do you have a question for Michael or something you wanted to contribute to the conversation at large? Jocelyn, are you there? Jocelyn going once, going twice. Ali, am I saying that right?
Yes. Hi, Nate. Thanks so much for this room. I just I'm really appreciating this discussion. I just want to say hi to Michael. I'm not sure if he remembers me, but we met in BC at the BC Awards in 2015, and then in Calgary as well. So I'm just so happy to see him here and to hear him. He's
Hey,
always been an
Ali.
inspiration to me.
How you doing?
Hey, Michael. I'm good, man. You've always been an inspiration to me as an actor and an artist. I just love your proponent for authenticity. So, yeah, I just love you. I My question is regarding proposed or maybe implied cooperation between governments. Would this be a solely U.S. government initiative, an incentive? Perhaps there is already talks of it cooperating and instructing other governments to stay in line or to do the same um, um, sort of sideline
Ali, we lost you there. Are you still there?
question because
Ali, you cut out, my man. We missed the last 5 seconds.
oh, okay, yes. So just the core of the question is there an incentive, or are they already operations in place for the U.S. government to instruct and bring on other governments into the sidelining of this narrative? Yeah, I guess that's my question. Thanks.
That's a great question, Michael. Do you want to hit that, and then I can go after you?
Oh boy, it's a big one.
Well, you're in Canada too, so I think it's a good perspective on what you've seen up there.
My perspective on the whole thing is what I try to remind myself this is like, because it's really in the media right now, what's going on in the States, right? But this is a worldwide thing. Like, it's going on everywhere. So every government's part of it. And that goes back to the stuff my dad told me, like, this government knows, Canada knows, United States knows, France, everybody knows. What information they're sharing with each other, I think everybody's being kind of private about. and I'm trying to still remember the question that was asked. How are all the governments relating to each other? Was that it?
He was asking if he thinks America is ultimately kind of behind, essentially influencing or putting out initiatives to other governments as it pertains to this phenomenon. Is that right, Ali?
Yeah, that's right. Thanks, Nate.
The only thing I have to say about that is if there's this fear that there seems to be pushing out, being from Canada and having friends from other places of the world, what we talk about is the United States does have a huge influence on everyone. Everybody looks to the United States, whether it's movies or film or art or whatever. Like it pushes a narrative worldwide. So that's the one thing I worry about, the whole fear-mongering kind of pushing out. It's a threat that will spill over to other parts of the world. But yeah, I think that's all I kind of have to say about that.
Yeah, no, I think that I just want to get, because being from Canada, you do have, and being so close essentially to America, you would have the perspective of what is seen from there versus here. And
the only perspective I have is and again, it's all positive, but United States, it's always a show, right? It's very promoted, publicized. It's in all the media, and it's always a spectacle. Whether it's the election, everybody watches. It has nothing to do with what's going on with our country in the world, but we're all glued to what's going on in the States all the time, which I think is fascinating. It's like the influence that the United States has on everyone. With this subject matter, I think it's a delicate one because I think everybody's handling it in their own way. I come from personal belief that we're supposed to combine what I love. Somebody asked what books or movies or stuff to be inspired by. I really like the movie Arrival because the theme of that was everybody had to come together and pool their information together to decipher what their language was. And you couldn't do it. It wasn't just the United States could figure it out. Everybody had to join together to figure it out. And I really think that's the whole true purpose of everything. I don't think we're going to get anywhere unless we all come together and just figure it out together. But that's just me.
Yeah, and to build on that, I mean, it's, as everything Michael said, the U.S. has a tremendous influence, right? Especially within our allies. Tremendous economic pull, military pull. There's tons of things that can be leveraged ultimately if push comes to shove and they really want to control this narrative abroad within allied countries. Obviously, they're not going to be able to do much with countries that are outside of that, but those countries are usually under a similar mindset of concealing certain information, especially as it pertains to anything that could give them an advantage militarily. But the U.S. operates in this way, at least from my opinion, very much in creating this giant thought bubble within our country. Most people here, which is why I always say instead of going to college, you should backpack the world for a year and get a way better perspective on how everything else is, how other cultures are, how we're viewed abroad, like everything that is required to just become more of an international, citizen, if you will, and not buy into everything that happens with the United States, especially as it comes to warmongering and the vilification of other nations and groups and things like that. And traveling really opens your eyes to that, and you realize there really isn't anything to fear, even in places they say you shouldn't go. Within, obviously, there's places you shouldn't go within the United States. Keeping that, into consideration of don't go to places that are going to be dangerous, or particular areas, but. That there's a training of the mass consciousness within the United States percolates out. And so, as Michael was saying, you have, entertainment is all here. Hollywood is here. The music industry, I mean, at large, is here as far as global. When you talk about artists who make it on a global stage and blow up to that level, it starts here, and there is very much narrative within film and television, and that stuff, trickles out to the masses. And you have people who are here who, if they don't leave this country, buy into this mindset of America and everything that's here. This is it, and everyone else must think the same way, and they buy into whatever that narrative is, and then they perpetuate that out to their circle of influence, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of like this full court press on the mass consciousness, globally, in a way that that comes out from this country. And so I think there's that influence, which could potentially have an impact as far as the framing of the subject goes, if the government and the media successfully, convinces the public of a particular narrative as it pertains to this subject matter. And I'm sure they will have influence, which they have before, of other countries and possibly aligning themselves in the same type of narrative. Though a lot of countries don't do it. France obviously did the Comeda report and released that independently, and Britain did the same thing. South America has done this tons of times, and basically all America does is not give it any press whatsoever. Like, there is no, they won't even, it won't even reach here. It will be filtered out so incredibly quick that outside of people like me or the other ufologists on stage, people who've researched this stuff, who actively dig for it and go through whatever channels they can to track down this information abroad, because so much of amazing footage and amazing encounters and things have happened in other countries as well that wasn't repressed, or suppressed rather. And so that's basically seems to have been their tactic, is that I'm sure there's definitely influence coming in at a very deep kind of geopolitical level, where there is some type of control of that narrative within the allies. And if not, then it's just that information's not going to make it here. It won't be perpetuated out by the microphone that is the United States when it comes to media influence. But as far as a specific written directive that came from America to other countries, I doubt it. I'm sure it's a conversation that's been had at super high levels and closed rooms that very few people would have ever heard about, that discuss these things at the utmost highest levels of secrecy, and that would be pretty much it. But there's only so much America can really do, let's be real, of controlling what other countries do as it pertains to this subject matter. But that would be my my take on that, and I don't know if any of the other mods have anything to say to that. If so, or if not, rather, we can move keep moving forward. None of you guys? Good. All right. Jocelyn, I'm going to give you another chance. See if you're there. Nope. Victor, you are up.
Okay, thank you, Nate, for giving me some time to speak. I just had some basic questions. I have a lot of questions actually, but mainly what I wanted to ask is this. I've been trying to research this on my own as well, but I've been trying to share some of this information. I am South American, so I am of Peruvian. I'm Peruvian, right? So I've been kind of wanted to ask you in regards to the topic of the conversation. Should we be kind of trying to get people involved and kind of sharing this information before these disclosures, or do you think this is something that we should kind of be passive about? Because I have a lot of people like in South America that are very interested and want to be able to share these things, but I don't know if I should be sharing these things too, because just because of the fact that you may sound a little quirky and stuff like that, but also I think that it also comes out of initiative. But should we be sharing this news about what's going to happen next month? I don't know if it's going to be big or not. And the second question would be to Michael and to Data. I was just curious about what the Apple disclosures were in particular, about if this could be for a next topic or something. But I was just curious about that.
Hey,
Victor, first.
Victor, this is Scotty. The simple answer is absolutely yes.
especially when mainstream media is sharing it, and in not the best way. So people like Nate and others in this room, and other people that have, clubs that share these types of things, share it in a responsible way where we deal with facts and not just ridiculous speculations. So, yes.
Do not, yes, second what Scotty said, Victor, do not be afraid to ever share this stuff. Once again, at this point, and with technology the way it is, you have access to an embarrassment of riches as it pertains to proof that is out there. That is why we give a lot of the websites that data is found, because they are the hard facts. Like there's tons of other things you can be pointed to, but if you're wanting, like, no, here are the websites here, like straight from the government, the NSA, the CIA, the DOD, the NASA, like here are the declassified documents talking about this. This has been taken seriously longer than anyone, even has any idea of, though we're trying to give them that idea in these rooms, so they can better understand the full scope of what's going on. But you have nothing to fear. If anything, you will be the one vindicated first and foremost, because things are coming out, and especially, what's going to happen in the next, month or two with that 180-day thing. People in ufology aren't holding their breath for it to be a giant bombshell, but it's going to be more. It's going to be more things that are ultimately going to back this. And I think we all have a responsibility, which is the whole reason for this club in the first place. If you know these things, you've experienced these things, you've done, the research. Like if I spent 12 years doing this and I don't tell anybody this outside of people who I just come in contact with me, it's kind of the same thing Michael was saying. It's bizarre that the people I attract to myself in regular life who happen to they could be strangers, and instantly this is a subject that comes up, and I don't even need to know them, but whatever it is, I'm putting it out there. It's my reality. I'm creating it, and I'm attracting these people to myself. Is that you have a responsibility to share this information in a loving kind of way that is grounded. If it comes from that standpoint and is grounded in with as much integrity and discernment to the subject matter as you can, then they're going to feel that. Like if you're coming from that place of planted, once you hear something, you can never unhear it, and that's the strength and power of words, which is why we should all use them wisely, because you say hurtful things, they will make an impact on somebody and last way longer than anybody realizes. And the same can be said for good things and information. And once that seed is planted, it will take root in that time on that person's own, spiritual evolutionary journey through this life. When they're ready to receive it, ready to hear it, they will. But it's up to the people who are doing, the research into this and have access to this information because they've looked for it, to share it with people. This is what the whole idea of elevating the mass consciousness to account for this and to raise that vibration globally, so that we can ultimately step into that next dimension, if you will, the next level of consciousness, and kind of meet our galactic neighbors in that regard, and kind of take our place in that neighborhood, if you will, because there's so much more out there, but we're not going to be privy to it until we're ready to receive it. We stop killing each other, destroying this planet, and letting egos go unchecked. And so I would say, as always, yes, and don't fear that ridicule. And if people are really your friends anyway, they're not going to care that you say this. They might give you a little shit for it or whatever. But if somebody actually cares enough that it steps in the way, then that's the universe doing you a favor right off the bat and being like, yeah, this person's not really good for you anymore, because it is your journey, and it is all about frequency and vibration. And once you raise yours and you're on a particular path, you'll notice the people that aren't on that path anymore tend to not resonate with you, because they're off a different frequency. And that's the same in relationships, the same in everything in life. And so that was a long-winded answer to just say yes. And what was the question for Michael that you had? That was the second one.
Nate,
Yeah,
I
well,
just
there was a particular question that I had about, and I mean, this was for I think Joe or Data, about going a little bit more in depth about
Oh, the
the.
Apple thing. Yeah. No,
Yeah, but
we're
yeah,
saving that for another room,
sounds good.
or
Sounds good.
if
Thank
we
you.
can, if we can.
No, I appreciate that. The last thing I would say is that the only thing I have to say is that it's interesting that, and this is kind of relates to previous speakers here in this room, is that and I think Michael touched upon this too. You did as well. How U.S. seems to be the one that dictates what narrative is kind of uh, you know, uh, guided upon this conversation. And I just wonder if there's a particular agenda why this is happening right now and why U.S. is pushing this particularly, or if there's some type of synchronicity with other governments as well. That was it.
Well, that in itself is a topic for an entire another
That's a
room.
big one.
Yeah,
That's a big one.
that's
It's like all the questions. One
Yeah,
good solid
I
all the
appreciate
questions.
it. Thank
over
you
the
so much.
weeks we've like tried to answer that question with why now, but that is a good question, especially when the consciousness of the world has been bruised by the pandemic.
yeah. It's sadly one
Yeah,
that's too deep to go into here.
I can't even comment without opening a bomb, so I won't. But Nate, I am
Thank
going
you.
to get on your case about compiling a resource link list for all your declassified files, because you bring them up often, recurrently in rooms. So I think having that as a tool would be helpful. So I'll get on your case about that separately.
We're already in the works of building out a website and a whole thing to kind of go along with this. That's in early stages right now, but hopefully will happen sooner than later, where there will be a resource for this type of stuff and a forum and whatnot, to continue the conversation with it. But yes, so thank you, Victor, and I love Peru. It's an incredible country. It's magical in so many ways, and strongly recommend everybody go there who has not gone there. But thank you, man. Lily, you are up next. Lily, going once, going twice.
Maybe we can't hear her because she has a mask on.
Very well could be. Okay.
Thank you, Scotty.
Sawson.
I couldn't resist.
It was a layup.
It's late.
It was
It's
a layup.
late.
Yeah. Sawson, welcome. Do you have a
Thank you.
question or comment?
Thank you, Nate. I have a couple questions. I'll be very quick so you guys can go to bed. My question is for Data. Data, you said something like, I'm not going to quote you perfectly, but if you said something like, if you search something outside the preset collection or what they know about what's going on, the algorithm will pick it up and this might land you on the list. And why do you think is that? Is it because it means you have independent sources talking to you independently, or is it because you're not supposed to know, or both? Shall I go with the second question as well? I
Sure.
have a there is an emotional trauma, with all of this after so many years of making fun of this stuff. I've been particularly disappointed in the academy and the scientific field in general after the shameful acts they've done in the past 2 years. How after after how do you sit yourself down and do work after all what's happening, like to read a peer-reviewed paper or a research scientific paper, because now, like, I'm thinking of everything that they're making fun of people who have been doing independent science, and they're saying it's pseudoscience, when in fact they are the ones who are pseudoscience. Like, how do you console yourself with that? um, um, I guess you could, you can put yourself on autopilot just to pay the bills and, do work, but to concentrate and innovate, that takes inspiration. How do you manage this situation?
Yeah. I think that, well, to answer your first question, just researching is not going to get you on some sort of a list. All right. And how do I know these things, right? So getting a little bit technical, so I watch traffic, and I can see specific things like specific IP addresses, specific network packets that are gathering the data inside of my machine or my virtual machine that I'm working on, and then I can follow and trace those packets back. And so how do I know that they're actually am I on a list? Yeah, absolutely, right? But I chose to be on a list, right? So my, making sure that my packets are actually going back to the proper channel is super important. Now, and that's but for others, right? So say you're researching or going to the links that Nate provides, that this is not going to get you on this list, right? There's nothing to fear, right? Now, if you are stumbling across something, right, and you maybe, then there are instances where you can stumble across something that is classified, top secret, cosmic top secret, different classifications. There's other different classifications, right? Not for foreign intelligence, there's a lot of different classifications, of course, but you're still not going to get on that list, right? Because if you're not intentionally going there and you don't even know what to do with it, right? Just because you viewed that document doesn't mean that you know what to do with it, right? So that is the misconception with people. Oh, I found something that's top secret and I shouldn't have gone in there. I'm on this list. No, you're not. No, if you make a copy of that document, that metadata that's inside of that document gets put on your machine. And if that machine does not correlate with the database back at, let's call it headquarters, right? Well, then, yes, the algorithm automatically is going to flag you because your machine is not authorized to have that piece of document to have that document or a piece of the document even on your machine.
Okay.
Right? So that is something to think about too, that you have to have this, there is an intent to do something with it, right? At that point, you'll get put on a list, but you're not going to be on a priority list. You're going to be on a list that with somebody that has downloaded something. Look, if you go on to WikiLeaks, and you download a document from WikiLeaks, you get put in this little WikiLeaks section, right? But you don't get put on this like important section, right? If you're on WikiLeaks looking at documents, that's fine, but you're not a hacker, right? You're not trying to maliciously, distribute something that's already out there anyways, right? There's something super important to know. And as far as your second question, there's a lot of things, and I'm sure somebody else can answer this too. I'm sure there's a lot of injustices that happen, in the United States. Actually, I know it, right? Like Nate had said before, and I had said before, I have this duty to share information, personal, I believe, and as a human, honestly, to share knowledge. I cannot progress in my life if I don't share knowledge, and this is one of my biggest purposes in life. And I do the best that I can, quite frankly. So hopefully that answers it.
Yes, very good. Thank you very much.
Data, really quick. Share what you share with Michael and the audience, what you share with us.
Oh yes. Okay. So, all right. It's a little bit of a break. And my wife and I, we've been listening this whole time. My wife helps me research a lot too, with a lot of these things. I mean, me and Joe and her, we been running this company for quite some time now. So we go out and we're going to do the flashlight test. And we go out with the intention to see something, and so we're on 17 acres. We live in the country. Right now it's just stopped raining. There's no stars in the sky. There's no lights out.
You did this right now?
Oh yeah, we did it. Let's see, probably what did it say, like 45 minutes ago or so, guys? I guess I sent you a message.
Cool.
Yeah, so we go out, and so we have one of these super powerful flashlights, and then she says, you know what, no, this one's not the one that we need to use this other flashlight. But the flashlight is, once you power it on. Then it has these different levels, you know, bright, dim, whatever. And we're like, oh, you know what? Let's just try it. So we go out and go into the middle of our field, and she you know does a pulse, 3 pulses, and then we're like, well, we don't see anything. And it was like, you know what? I'm like super disappointed. And then we said, you know, let's just try it again. All right, we can't see the moon, we can't see the stars. Like, there's no lights around us. We literally live in the country, right? But we have gigabit Ethernet out here, or gigabit. Side note. So we try it again, and then we see lights in the clouds getting brighter, coming towards us, forming a shape. And we're just honestly, look, I can say I am not scared of anything, and I was not scared of this, but I was taken back. Like, this is crazy. We're both looking. We're like, this is nuts. This is getting brighter. It's like we can see a shape coming out of the cloud. And again, it's like an overcast, you know, and you can see the you know, a little bit of the clouds. There is a bright light creating a shape right. We were literally looking at it up in, like, right above us. Craziest. Like, we were ready to give up. Honestly, we're ready just to, like, you know what? Maybe we just try again later or something. And it lasted like, you know, 1 to 2 minutes, and then, you know, the lights dissipated. There is no other light around us. You know, the moon. You know, my wife's like, well, the moon's always bright, but she's a believer too, right? But there's no, the moon is. I mean, there's no space to come through. Because of how overcast it is. I mean, unbelievable experience, amazing.
Did it
Of
show
course,
up
we
where
both
you
are
shined the
believers.
light?
Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah. And
absolutely.
when I did it, it was the same thing. Going, I'm gonna give up. It's not happening. I'm like, I'm just gonna try it one more time, and I just put out those thoughts, and then boom.
Yeah, absolutely amazing experience. Thank you for that,
So it
Michael.
works. My dad
Yeah,
was
we
right.
look. I'm telling you. But again, we went into it, full believers. You know, hoping that we could experience something. You know, we can argue the science on this, right? We can argue. You know, the energy that we emitted, right? And I'm a scientist. You know, first and foremost, and you know, we can study. You know, what actually happened, maybe light refraction, something like that, some particles and you know, molecules. I'm not going to study it right now. I'm going to take it for what it is, right? You know, if I'm tasked to study what actually happened and prove it through science, well then, you know, I will do whatever it takes to do that. But our reality and what we actually saw was the formation of you know, a craft within the clouds, getting brighter, coming closer to us,
And when you did it,
almost as an acknowledgement.
were you exactly? It's like an acknowledgement, right? That's what it feels
Yeah,
like.
it's like
You
an
felt
acknowledgement.
that? Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. It's
That's
like
what
they
it
were
felt like.
trying to say hi, I suppose. Like, hey, an acknowledgement, exactly. It's what it is, what it seemed like, felt like. Like, hey, thanks, we're here.
I think it's
Unbelievable
worth
experience.
noting that you're the first person to explain everything away with science too, so it's kind of interesting.
Absolutely, yeah. I will absolutely explain everything away. And you know, I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in demons. I don't believe in the devil. I don't believe in Christianity. I mean, I know that they exist to people, but not for me. That's not how I live my life. So this experience for me, again, if I am tasked to prove it out and prove, you know, I will do everything to, you know, everything in science, you know, that's possible with science to prove it out. This experience was just amazing, amazing.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Data, that's
And
huge. And I'll
and
say,
did yeah.
oh, go ahead, Michael.
I just wanted to ask, did when you were doing it, were you just flashing it, and or were you putting out an energy
Yeah.
inside?
Yeah, so we have it was on a pulse. So one of the flashlights that we took out there is, it's like mag light, and the third setting is a pulse. So we let it pulse for maybe about 3 seconds. So you know, we're talking about maybe 9 flashes. You know, just because the first 3 flashes didn't work, you might as well give it a little bit more juice or something, you know.
But
But yeah,
inside,
we
like your
no,
conscious, were you putting out like I want to
Oh,
see
our vibes
that.
were like we really want to see it. That's for sure. And you know, my wife was like, let's just wait more time. Let's wait more time. She's like, didn't Michael say it'd take like maybe 20 minutes or something? And she's like, let's just wait more time. And I was like, God dang it, just freaking, what I'm trying to appear, basically,
It's
And so she's like, just wait. And then all of a sudden, it just we just stopped in our tracks, and we're just like, oh, what in the hell is happening?
see, it works.
You know what's
It
weird is
works.
people always say you're doing God's work, but no one says you're doing aliens' work.
Yeah, that's
That's
true.
Very,
another
very
room.
true,
That's
Joe.
another room.
Very true. Yeah. Well,
Pretty good. That's pretty good.
You know, one thing
That
I'll add to this,
that means a
which I
lot to
think,
me too.
um, Nate has and a few others, and Silver has mentioned before, is that when you put yourself into that awareness state. I've been part of mass UFO sightings, with 30 or more people, to where it was just as plain as the sun, where a large portion of the people couldn't see it. Um, so a part of this is a big part of this is just putting yourself in that state of acceptance and in consciousness.
And I agreed. And data, I will say from the scientific perspective on that, there's no way that the flashlight light reflecting going at the speed of light plus its dissipation being a weak beam would hit the clouds and come back and reflect in a way like that.
Yeah,
So
I'm with you, Nate. I'm with you.
you're I'll settle that one right now and continue the deep dive into it to try and obviously scrutiny once again is good because there is tons of videos. Actually, there's one I shared um, in the group chat the other day that was on that contact tour site that was clearly like drones. Like there's tons of these UFO things that are coming out, or something along those lines. Some of these are like satellites now, where because there's such an influx of this, because now it is all over the news, that there are more and more of these things coming out. But people need to be slightly better trained observers. Because you don't want to add to this idea then of like, oh, this is happening like, everywhere. It's always been happening. It hasn't changed. And by and large, 80% of these things can be explained away. But
Hey
certain
Nate,
ones
I think I
can't
know
be.
why it worked. It's probably because he spent $10 on Stephen Greer's app.
No, did you do it?
I don't buy apps, Joe. You know that.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
Touche.
you don't buy technology.
No, no. I think what Nate is saying is actually super important. We peer review the things that we share with you all, right? For the an entire week, we're always sharing in our groups, all the mods. We're constantly sharing information, maybe debunking what we've put on there. I mean, there's debates, there's agreements, there's well, this is there's this is super important. So and to say, well, we peer reviewed the ufologists' work, that is super important, honestly. And we're not so we spend time, right, for in our group, in our back channel group, just making sure that we're providing everyone with the best information that we can, so that you're not guessing and taking this with a grain of salt, right? Like, look, there's can be all kinds of interpretations of things. That's why Nate's always saying that we try to give you the best and most accurate data possible. And people will say, well, you're getting information straight from the government, that's not going to be accurate. Well, when we finally get our site up with all of our links, I mean, there are we have the documents that are published but not available, readily available to the public, which we have declassified documents where 25 pages are mostly stricken, right, that Nate wanted to speak about tonight. There's just hundreds of those pages mostly stricken, but still gives a lot of information. And then you have the one that's available to the public, which is just like a sliver of what we have, what's available. And so yeah, that is exactly, like, we really just we try our best to peer review the work before we give it out to you guys, so it's not just random thoughts.
You will all dive, if you once you take this journey into the rabbit hole, you will inevitably dive very, very deep into all sorts of wild topics, and that's a part of it. And while I find a lot of them fascinating, and I believe parts of many of them, if I go around and running a room like this and I start discussing these things, it ultimately ends up doing a disservice to it, because the people who are skeptics on the matter are immediately gonna go and debunk those things and be like, oh, this, because there's not proof. There's a lot of testimony. There's a lot of deathbed confessions. There's a lot of stuff out there in that regards, but it's ultimately it can't necessarily be corroborated. Some of it can, but if you're looking for hard facts, it's not necessarily there. Doesn't mean it's not true. Doesn't mean that I don't believe a big portion of it, but as it pertains to how this subject matter has been treated for such a long time, the disinformation and stigmatization and counterintelligence, everything that we're working against, that has been put in place since the 70s. Everybody's been programmed to react to the subject in a very specific way, and we don't want to give them ammunition. We'll do rooms, and we have, that dive into some of the subject matter that we can't prove, but that is worthy of discussion and expansion and debate. But we preface it beforehand with going into that, so that that is understood, that is what this room is, and they're fun, and they're good things to have, and they're definitely needed. But given what's happening right now, the subject matter so far, for the most part, in these rooms, outside of the Gateway Experience ones and a couple others that we've had, have been kind of on this disclosure of the last 3 years, because now is the time when people's consciousness are slightly opening to this, because the majority of people, whether for whatever reason, I mean, I know the reason, but they depend on the government or the media to tell them what's real. And that is clearly the reason for why we are where we are as a country today, and as a globe in many regards, is the people who are in control and dictating this narrative are not telling the truth and do not have the best intentions for the greater good of humanity or our planet at large. And that can be seen by just taking a step back and looking what we've done with it and what we're doing to each other. And so now more than ever, it is very important to make sure that there's a foundation given that is as factually sound as possible. So for people who are new to it, or possibly even skeptics, can get the facts straight away. And then once that shift takes place, once that new reality becomes accepted, then suddenly you're open up to everything else. And then you realize all things are possible. They always have been. But now for the individual, all things are possible. And it's a way better reality to live in. It's far more exciting. It's far more fascinating and complex and beautiful and amazing. But it takes that initial shift. And with the programming that's been taking place, and present it in a way that does not, scare them off or fuel any skepticism that they may have. And so it needs to be very methodical and well thought out going forward. And so that's the reason for the majority of the rooms as of late, because I think more and more people are ready for it, judging by the rate at which I think the room has been growing, is a testament to that. But we will have those rooms. Don't get me wrong; they're fun, and that will be what this whole thing will be building is going to end up serving that purpose, where it'll be kind of a community that people can really expand upon these things, and we'll put resources and all that stuff so that you don't have to spend 12 years doing it. You can try and cut to it a lot quicker, because we need everybody on this same page. We need everybody evolving as quickly as humanly possible within their own consciousness, and creating a mass consciousness that is all about oneness and love and empathy and compassion and love and understanding and forgiveness and all the other things that are desperately needed to kind of heal the world and usher us into this next phase that we all want to be in. Even if I don't think we can identify that or articulate it, it's at our core, and nobody likes where we're at right now as a civilization. We're not where we should be, and we're not in a healthy place, and whatever we can do to correct that, we will. And it's up to us, it's up to the individual, but up to us as a whole to do that. And so I agree with that completely, Data, and thank you. And with that, I do want to keep it going in PTR order. We're almost through here. Axel, you well, actually, really quick, just check if you haven't spoken yet, Sharath, I'm going to give you one more chance. You're going to be moved down to the bottom. Sharath, going once, going.
Can you hear me?
Yep, can hear you, man.
Yeah, I mean, again, I just want to thank you guys for the room. And Michael, I just have a quick question. I actually had a couple of things. One is maybe a question for Michael, and the other is I was actually reading just today about the SETI and how the effort was sort of organic initially, and then it was taken over by Yuri, who was a billionaire. I actually was just wondering if that's just a front for keeping us sort of guessing as to whether the government knows, or why would we spend 100 million on SETI? So that's just one thing that I was thinking about. But to Michael, again, thanks for sharing that experience. That was pretty powerful. I'm just wondering, is that did that connection stop after you grew up? And the reason I ask is, and I think children especially have quite a lot. I mean, I don't know if it's with just the fact that at that age there's so many unique things about the human body, and the fact that, for example, uh, just the antibodies that get generated, or the way that we react to disease is a testament to how the human body is so fantastic as a child compared to when you're an adult. So I'm just wondering if it's more at a certain age, and I'm just curious if you had that connection sort of go away later. Is that's what I got from what I was hearing. And thanks again for this room.
No, it's a good question. There was one part I did forget that you just reminded me back when my dad popped over and visited, and he did say the stuff that's going on with you, the experiences that you're having that you just shared with me, and how it goes down the lineage and stuff. He did say it will stop for a while. He goes, there's going to be a patch of time where nothing will happen, and then it'll start again. I remember that he said that, and that's pretty much been my whole 30s. I think was like, and that's what I was talking about. Like, you miss it, you crave it, you want it to come back, even though it's incredibly frightening. I also have this is my own theory. Back then, and when he mentioned you're 19 now, and he knew by some chance that this is when you start remembering or stuff like that. If there is some kind of connection when you're young, or there's a certain age that things start opening up for your mind. But I've also, and this is kind of confusing, but with the experiences that I've had with them, I do feel like I did get information download from them. And one thing that I've been toying around with was, when I was young, I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't do anything. And I feel that somehow connected, because I do now, because I'm older. And I just have this internal kind of feeling that if you're clean, like of alcohol, smoking, whatever, you're more in tune with it, or them, the connection's stronger. I don't know if that's just an idea I've had.
I see that.
Yeah, it's just like, it's a feeling, and I feel like I'm always being reminded of it, unconsciously or subconsciously, which I'm toying around with, just stopping everything for a year just to see if it brings it back. But the experiences I'm having now are me creating them. I'm doing the meditation, I'm doing the stuff, putting it out there, having the practicing the summoning and all that stuff. Back in the day when I was younger, it was all happening to me without trying. So there could be some kind of connection to younger, older, I don't know. But I did mention that part of the story, that my dad said that it stops for a while and then it'll start again. some waiting for that, I guess.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that does, it's echo. We've talked about it before. I mean, kids' minds are absolutely impressionable. It's society that ruins them, right? Like it's society that puts the limited thoughts, the restrictions, the dogmas, the no, you can't, that's not possible. Like it's a limiting mindset that happens, and I think a number of us could probably even pinpoint, parts in our childhood or essentially when our innocence died. And at that point, before that, we believe all things are possible. The imaginations we have as children are infinite, and we live in that space, and it's very real. And a lot of kids, see things that adults don't see. They're far more open, energetically and spiritually, and connected to source still. And they're more open. It's all about consciousness again, right? I mean, it's a full circle with that. And I think that is an interesting part that has to do with it. And I agree very much, Michael, with the idea of any type of drug that and I don't consider psychedelics a drug. I'm going to preface that. I'm a big proponent of them. If done respectfully with discernment and the reverence that they deserve, with clear setting and intention and integration, they will change your life.
Yeah,
They're not.
mine's more like just polluting yourself with, the
Yeah.
crap that we do every day,
Yeah, no, I agree. That's why I wanted to make that distinction before I, chimed on, because I do a lot of rooms on, psychedelics and things like that. But as far as like the drugs that society, ordains and says are okay are ultimately the most destructive ones. I mean, pharma, alcohol, tobacco, these things that are highly chemically addicting, that alter your consciousness in not a good way. And if they're used in any type of way that is an escape mechanism, they will become detrimental and lower your vibrations and kind of take you off that plane of where you should be. And I've been victim of this and battled addiction, my whole life in many different regards. And you can tell, when you're not, like Michael was saying, when you just know it. Like you know this sense of like, I know where I should be. Like I'm not on that level right now. I'm creating this block for myself that is keeping me from that contact, from that connection, and it will return. I think is once again your higher self is going to know this, and these are seasons of life that are ultimately going to be there to kind of teach things, but they do act as a gate, if you will, a block, an energy block that keeps
it's like
you from where you should be.
a filter in
Yeah.
between. Yeah, but you said it perfectly. I couldn't have said it better than you.
Hey, I can speak on the other question about SETI, if that's all right.
Yeah, go ahead, Dana.
Cool. Yeah, so I know that a lot of people think that this SETI is set up for basically it's like a front, right, for what's really happening. But there's so many great things have come out from this project from NASA. One in particular that I actually benefit from immensely and benefited me immensely during a satellite hacking competition. I did not win it, but I learned a lot. Let's just say that, and it further advanced my knowledge just because of what SETI had done. And if there's any technical people listening right now, I can give you a good resource. It's if you're using Python, you can install a package. It's a pip install rf-info. That's rf-info. And what that's going to do is it's a command line utility. So whenever you install this Python package, you would type in rf-info, and then you would type in whatever frequency that you wanted to hit. So for me, example, I would say rf-info, and then I would do the number 4 and type it 12 times, for example. So you'd have 4 12 times. And what the information that's going to be kicked back to you is what band are we on? So we're on microwave band Q, and this band Q is satellite communications, terrestrial microwave communications, radio astronomy, automotive radar, molecular rotational spectroscopy, and we can see that it's not broadcasting. It's not available for everyone. It's not an amateur band. It's not a satellite band that you can tap into, but this is a mobile station. So this is a there is a let's just call it a base point that is constantly orbiting us on using this microwave band Q. So what I'm trying to say is, and this is an extremely high frequency that we're talking about, and this is on NATO band L. So so all this information comes from the SETI project, and the purpose of the SETI project is to like find, it's called a narrow band, right? So anyone familiar with all this, like, we're trying, and Joe and I have a podcast specifically speaking about this, that if we're on a 5G 6G network, if we can get that super narrow band that's like 5.324.253, and we can tap into that band, we can maybe communicate with other beings or planets, or
Hey, is
maybe
that the
something else.
artificial intelligence episode?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe that's the
All right.
one.
So
Yeah.
YouTube ZRO Black Zero Black ZRO and artificial intelligence. If you're interested in seeing more about that, but also, can you talk at all about your your invention, your car diagnostic invention?
Guys, I do want to make sure we keep it on top. We're trying to wrap things up.
Yes. So,
Let's
anyways,
try to prove the credibility for what he's talking about. That's all.
No, I got you.
Oh,
big
yeah,
rabbit.
for sure. Yeah, I mean the credibility, on it. I appreciate it, Joe. I guess, believe it or not, right now, so we don't get too far into it. But I have the technology that I've developed. I've sold for quite a bit of money to a publicly traded company. So this is, in fact, this is true to tap into all these different narrow bands. Anyways, that should wrap it up, and hopefully answers your question. I'm Data.
No. Data, I love your mind, both you and Joe, and the technical expertise, especially as it pertains to programming. And I was laughing when you said I was a part of a satellite hacking competition. I'm like, of course you were.
Yep, that's
exactly
the same website he's talking about his ranking. But I just think it's important to prove that we're not just talking out of our ass. We can explain what we're talking
absolutely
about.
for sure. The satellite competition lasted 48 hours, by the way.
That's wild.
And Data and Joe, I think I'll catch up offline. But I mean, I don't want to derail the room, but yeah, there is this breakthrough listen project that I was looking at, and they were trying to detect a microburst of energy, what they call techno signatures, and this was to try and figure out if there's an alien civilization that unknowingly is basically existing, but we find out through a techno signature in let's say a planet far away. So I'm just wondering, if we do have civilizations that have visited us, we wouldn't even need that project. So that's where I was coming from. But that's probably another room altogether, and maybe we can explore that as well. But thanks, Data and Joe.
I think the coin that he's making is technically a techno signature. Am I wrong? Am I making that up?
Right. The crypto coin that I'm launching will be, it's going to be a specific, depending on how you perform, what kind of transactions you make. We're converting those transactions into signals that will be broadcast into deep space, and we'll be listening to that, for the signal to come back. Hopefully, it should, if theory proves itself correctly, it should take seconds to get a response, and then that response will be turned into an NFT that someone can keep, and then the profits that the crypto company makes that I own will be sent, 100% of it will be sent to research.
Pretty good question, Sharath. Nate, can I bring this back full circle real quick?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
This was on my mind heavy from earlier when we talked about crop circles. I just held my tongue, but the thought just came back to me. I always like to refer to Linda Moulton Howe, and I like her theory about how it could be, crop circles could be an actual frequency, like a time and a waypoint. And when we were talking about that earlier, I was like, it would make complete sense if you could read or measure that area, whether it's radiation, magnetism, and that frequency, that could be like a literal symbol, like the actual symbol it's making. Because what is the sand one? Is it citronics, cymatics, right? Where the sand makes the frequency. So
Cymatics, yeah.
yeah, cymatics. So it just makes me think like, yo, you can land somewhere, you can teleport somewhere, and then leave the impression, and it might be a symbol of like where to go to the next spot, maybe. So maybe like it's a symbol, but it's also a coordinate, and you can get from one place to another. And that's what I thought of when y'all were talking about frequencies. But obviously, that thought originally comes from Linda Moulton Howe, and she's definitely a pioneer in the whole, not just the abduction thing, but there is a lot of, I guess you could say, woohoo that comes with it. And that was kind of the earlier phase of it where it was like mutilations, like it's kind of corny. Oh, these green-headed things with big eyes. Yeah, right. But it just makes me think of that era. I know we talked about that too, how like there was a specific time when terms and things were taken like just very gimmicky. And now it's like proven why things were even hypothesized to begin with. That's all I had.
Yeah,
Really,
no,
really cool. Thanks.
and I think it is something potentially, like I said, having Michael here today, knowing what the story I wanted him to share was, kind of made me think. I'm like, we haven't dove into this subject, and it is an incredibly fascinating one that we just don't know enough about, as far as in the public. I mean, there are these theories, and Linda Moulton House is definitely one of them, and very interesting to dive into, because there's something there. This is the same type of symbolism and ideas that you see within ancient structures that are around the world, within hieroglyphs and all of these ancient sites that are very much connected to the energy of the planet. And the pyramids essentially being these power plants or these portals.
Ley lines.
Yeah, and there's so much to it, and it is such a fascinating subject that I think possibly even just doing almost a revitalization of that subject matter, once again making it more palatable for new times, and diving into these things in a room, I think might be a good idea. And we definitely want you back for that, Michael, as well, if you be down. I'm not sure when we'll do it, but I'll figure it out. But I think leading off kind of with that story again would be a good jumping off point to get the ball rolling, and then really diving into what. And I don't know if there's more to that your dad ever shared with you, as it pertained to the symbolism of it and what they actually they believed it to be. Be curious to hear that as well.
He said, when I asked him what do they mean, he said they're trying to give us hints, clues to what to focus on, because they can't just show up and just say, hey, we're here, because it'll just destroy everything. He said that they've done that before in the past on other worlds and seen what it happened, so they know they can't just do that before everybody's ready for it. And so then, and this was it was an hour-long conversation. It was quick, so I'm trying to remember everything. And he said his job was to decipher them, and he was tracing them back to the Hebrew alphabet. There were symbols in there that he was working on to figure out the messages. Because back then, too, they were very simple. They weren't as complicated as they are now. They were like a circle, and there was a circle with like an F sticking out of it. And they were very basic back in the day, and now they've gotten very complicated. And
Hey, Michael, I got a question.
yeah,
man. Is there anybody in the ufology community, like whether it be an actual professional or just somebody that you look up to, that you would compare maybe your father to, or like was pretty spot on or pretty accurate, or do you know who he studied or cared about?
no, I don't know. I didn't know much about him. I didn't have a relationship with him at all. Even after I saw him that one time when I was 19, we had a very basic relationship through email. I never saw him again.
The reason I find it so interesting is because like the kids in the 50s and the 60s, they were just volunteered by, their parent to be part of these programs and stuff. So it just makes me wonder why you wouldn't have been, so involved, or like what could have been so secretive in an aspect,
It makes sense if
Michael, you just said that you're talking about the Hebrew language. You know, essentially the language of the universe is math, and the Hebrew alphabet is essentially correlated to math. So there's definitely a connection there.
Yeah, I think this is Michael. If you want to respond to that, go ahead, and then we'll get to.
I was just going to say that's really interesting because I didn't know that. Telling these stories and the combining what each person knows kind of brings it all together. Like I'm the story guy, and then you guys kind of like what you guys know, fill it out, which I'm finding really interesting.
Yeah, and that is the beauty of the idea of this room and having these type of spaces is for intellectual, discerning conversation on taking a subject like this with the respect and seriousness that it ultimately deserves.
Hey, that being said, though, Nate, it's so serious, and we should respect it enough to like actually document these kinds of things. Like Data and I were saying earlier, like we can broadcast, we can record this. If y'all really want to go crazy, we can go live with it and video it. But I'm just saying, like we can figure that out. We can figure all that out later. But these are conversations that will disappear into the stratosphere, and they shouldn't, you know.
Yeah, there's stuff in the works. I can fill you guys in later on what's happening. But yeah, to your what you said basically, Michael. And then I'll pass it off to Ashley. He's the last person I believe who has not yet had a chance to speak. Is that the part that is when he said it was about communication? It was like this is their way of essentially communicating and slowly initiating an awakening of a mass consciousness to prepare for something like this because it didn't go well on other planets beforehand and whatnot. The most disturbing part about that is the fact that these beings have been very active in this in doing these things, but yet we as a people, or those who ultimately control things and control the narrative, have been busy suppressing that, like so that there is no way and debunking it, so that instead of taking it seriously, so that we can ascend into that next phase of evolution and understanding, that we're being halted in it, where there's such a desire of so many people to want to know, to want to be a part of it, and to want to understand essentially our place in the universe and our place within this galactic neighborhood that we reside. Is that we're slowing that down, and there's so many symbols, so many things have been given to us throughout history. I mean, all the ancient monoliths and megaliths that have existed and stood the test of time and have been here since the last Younger Dryas, last ice age. They were made by civilizations back then that achieved things that we can't even achieve today, that are riddled with signs and clues and hints about their origin, and that make us beg the question of why. What did they know? How did they know it? And how are they able to do this when we claim they were building mud huts and living like barbarians basically? And yet we now know, as more truth has come out, that the true age of these things is not at all what we've been told. And there's so much more to the story, and it's but yet academia suppresses this stuff. And when things like Göbekli Tepe are discovered, it's not mainstream news. You have to like dig for it, and all these things just throw up everything that we've been taught upside down completely, as does the UFO subject. And it's just it's very annoying, I guess is the word I will use, that there are so many clues, and that these beings are trying to initiate us into this understanding, and yet we have our own people on this planet who are deliberately suppressing that and stopping the mass consciousness from essentially understanding these things.
And that's kind of the whole point. Is they're, again, what he passed on to me was like, they're really hoping we get it. They want us to get it. They want us to get there. They just can't step in and make us get there with their help. But I remember him saying, goes, they want us to like all get to that place where we're ready for it. We're just not. And I think that's the whole process of our society and the earth that we've created. Is like, we're going to get it right or we're going to get it wrong. We're either going to get to that place where we're all open and ready for it, or we're not. I'm hoping we do.
As am I, my brother. Jocelyn, I'm gonna give you one last chance. Going once, going twice. Boom. Axel, appreciate your patience, man. You are up. Did you have a question or a comment that you wanted to throw out to Michael or to the room topic?
Thanks for giving me the mic. I'll be brief. I know everybody wants to go to bed. I'll use most of my time. Well, I do have a question to Michael, which is simply to repeat the website URL where you mentioned, I think it was about crop circles and project dot something something. I wasn't fast enough to take it down. And well, I really want to use my time as a segue to, I guess, what is your next show, Nate, which is about David Morehouse and remote viewing. I want to say I had the privilege to have a chat with him on Clubhouse, and well, it helped me tremendously. I do something similar myself. I sort of, to simplify it, as a hypnotherapist, I've accidentally built a method to travel into, let's call it the future, but future events. And when I channel properly, they happen 90% of the time. So it is now. So I'm now talking to a few scientists, and the stuff is beyond probabilities. Kind of, you just can't call them coincidence anymore. So it's fascinating, and he helped me tremendously. So by sticking a label on what I do. What I do want to say is, so he was involved in I think it was the Stargate project, and he's very familiar with the gateway process. But he has a particular take, which I'm sure he'll share. Although I did go online and downloaded the 36 tapes of self-hypnosis, which is something I practice in relation to the gateway process, which enables to communicate with, so remote viewing is one thing. David Morehouse will tell you that he unequivocally acknowledged to meet aliens through his hypnosis and trips. So that's quite fascinating, which kind of brings on to the topic of entities. And, there is a protocol. I haven't tried the Gaia protocol, but when I listened to the full 18 hours of the self-hypnosis and guided meditation tape to see if there was anything I wasn't doing. And, asking for permission and, protecting yourself is part of the protocol, which is why I was so adamant early on. And I jumped on Samantha to recommend her to protect herself. And I cut off Silver, which it's a shame he's left because I wanted to apologize because I hate when people interrupt, and I did it twice. But I was just, I'm too aware of this stuff. And my job as a hypnotherapist is to get people, to empower people and get them rid of their fears. So fear is not something I'm an advocate of. I don't follow any faith. I don't believe in demons either, like Joker. And like him, I believe we should focus on doing alien work as opposed to God work. So I think it's funny. I didn't know somebody had the same thought. But so I'm on that side too. But I have felt and I have seen with my own eyes what it's like to be visited by an entity. And I have seen my own face change in a mirror after shamanic sessions and things, and that was fine because I was protecting. And I was then invaded another time by an entity that wasn't fine, and I wasn't protecting myself because I didn't know what I was doing. So I just want to say, these things are, and by the way, for all we know, let's assume this could be our fears. The protection rituals work no matter what it is, most of the time. So there's no downside in doing them. It doesn't diminish our power, to connect to anything. On the contrary. So with that being said, I want to say you're gonna have a blast with David Morehouse. Fascinating guy. Well done for making sure he came because I know he cancelled and was due to speak to him. Also, yeah, last point. The reason why I'm connecting the way I'm connecting, so it kind of runs in the family. We're a family of, like, let's call it medium or whatever. But also, I quit drinking and smoking 6 years ago. So I've been sober for 6 years, and 6 months within my sobriety, the shift happened, undoubtedly. So I began sensing things about people, their past, present, and then channeling, into the future and things like that. And the manifested synchronicities is what kept me sober, because I went through an absolute hell. I'm sharing here because some people touched upon this stuff, and I think we're talking about things which are much greater than my addictions. But I went through absolute hell, and those synchronicities, those manifestations, kept me having faith in a life which clearly is wonderful, has wonders that we can tap into it that we don't see. So I would encourage people to try to delve into that, but just to be careful as you do it, and ask for permission and protect yourself and say thank you, that sort of thing. But I just think what you're doing is absolutely awesome, and more importantly, it's essential. So I just want to thank you all, guys. You're doing great, moderating job. And tell Steve I apologize for cutting him off if you remember to do that. So have a good night, everybody, and thank you.
Let him know, Axel. Thank you. And if you want the thing you were mentioning, the data I mentioned earlier, just Google Project MM dash 0531.
Thank you very much.
Gotcha, man. Scotty?
Hey, Axel, good to see you in here, brother. Thanks for coming in.
Likewise.
Hey, I just want to make a quick PSA. I'm just cruising through a lot of bios and checking people out, and I see also a lot of new users from India because they started to roll out the Android platform out there. So just want to welcome all the new Android users. But there's a lot of new people and new people to Clubhouse in the room, and as you're cruising around Clubhouse, if you like, regardless of the conversation, regardless of what's being said, if it resonates with you and you like what you're hearing, the best thing to do to improve your feed is to, one, follow the person that resonates with you, and then also, two, the club. And not necessarily just the moderators, but anyone who's speaking, but especially the club, because what's going to happen is your feed will start to improve. The people who are presenting and speaking in this room specifically, we like to keep things real. We like to present facts, and we do our due diligence. We've been studying this stuff for a large portion of our lives, and so the information that we provide, I'm sure if you've been here for a while, you could see that we have some top hackers. We have people that have been researching these things for a long time and have used discernment over the decades. So whether it's a room that I'm doing, in whether it's my own club or here along with Nate, we hold the rooms with the highest integrity, and which is really important, because when you're on social media, anybody could say anything and fill your head with all kinds of bullshit. And as much fun as it is to kind of speculate and go along with pop culture, sometimes the people that are presenting the legit stuff may not be the pop culture fun thing to talk about, and be contrary to those opinions. But to hold the integrity and the seriousness of the topic, that's why Nate has this room and has the panel of people that come up here and speak. So with that said, follow with discernment and intention. And that's about it. I just wanted to welcome all the new users. There's a lot of new clubhousers in the room today. So I just want to welcome you. And then also in the future, if you want to come up and speak and you don't have your profile filled out, or a linked Instagram account or Twitter account, we typically will not bring people up. We mostly just to avoid trolls and bots. So just keep that in mind. And that kind of holds true with most large rooms that you may find yourself in. So if you want to be brought up and you have a question, just have some information on your bio. That's all I wanted to say. And I just want to thank everybody for coming. Thanks, Nate.
Thank you, Scotty. And yeah, definitely a very important PSA, especially the profile thing. Many rooms, Scotty said, will not bring you up, and we are one of them if there is not a Instagram linked or a bio. If the club was, if the profile was created in the last day or two and you have no information on there, it's usually a sign of somebody trolling or a bot of sorts. And so many rooms filter that out. And so if you do want to be brought up and you are new, that party hat will go away in a week, so don't worry, but just make sure you have the information filled out in your profile, and you'll be more likely to be brought up, and all are welcome in here. And so we do want to hear from you. So just make sure that you do that part, so you're given the opportunity to come up. On that note, we're wrapping it up. So I just want to say this is Nate Knight Talks, U.S. Government Disclosure, a week in review. To recap really quick, for those of you who joined late, every Monday night we do a room which is essentially the week in review, where we go over the last 7 days of all the information that has been put forth by the media and government as it pertains to the UFO disclosure. And we give you essentially a different lens to look at it through based on our many years of research. Once again, I've spent 12 years heavily researching in this, not just from the research standpoint, but personal experience through altered states of consciousness with psychedelics, making contact with these beings on my own, as well as through CE5-ish protocols. I only use that word because it's probably the most familiar to many people, but the human-initiated contact, similar to things that Michael was talking about earlier, and that Data just went out and did with his wife during the actual room. It is possible. Anybody can do it. It is all about consciousness, and that is something you need to know. There is no paywall for it. Anybody can do it. But we present this information of the past 7 days with insight as it pertains to all that research. Every moderator who is up here brings to the table a specific knowledge, experience, skill set within the subject matter to round things out, so that we're able to give you all the perspectives that are possible, to be able to arm you essentially with enough knowledge and discernment so that you can better decipher the narrative that is being put forth by the government right now, this very controlled, slow drip disclosure, which has been accelerating, especially in the past 4 to 5 months. But it is very imperative that you know the government's role in all of this, the history of this phenomenon within the country, what they've done prior, and why what they're doing now seems mildly dubious, and that we should, once again, not fear anything. The idea of this is not make anybody scared. It is to arm you with knowledge and understanding so that you can ultimately decipher this stuff yourself, and not be essentially a victim of any type of narrative programming and disinformation, and more importantly, the fear mongering. That is what the media and government does on a daily basis. If you pay attention to what they say, it's ultimately all divisive, even though they package it under a pretense of unity and oneness. Everything is ultimately divisive, which is why we see the state of the country and the world at large at odds with one another, when we should ultimately be uniting as one. There is no other. It is just one. It is imperative that we recognize that and understand it. And so on Monday nights, we do a weekend review to examine all of the new information that's been put out and give you the best ammunition possible to be able to understand what's happening, especially for those of you who are new to this subject, who are just now being bombarded with this information and not knowing what to make of it, especially also for the skeptics, people who don't believe. We're here to present nothing but the facts in rooms like this. There will be other rooms that will take a little more liberty, but we will explain that beforehand. So Monday nights are this night. Tomorrow night, once again, we'll be having David Morehouse here, which will be a part 4, essentially, of the CIA Gateway Experience, this declassified document, which we highly recommend everybody read before tomorrow night. Shoot us a DM. We'll send you a copy of it. They just released the 25th page a little over a month ago, which is why we've done a number of these rooms on it. It will change your life. If you are someone who meditates or works in other realms of consciousness or is spiritual, you will be familiar with a lot of it. It's not necessarily going to be new information, but it is going to validate it with physics and quantum physics and explanation grounded in science. And you're going to realize that the CIA and Russia and other foreign governments spent billions of dollars from the 70s to the 90s training operatives to become remote viewers and astral projectors to spy on the Russians and to make contact with extraterrestrial beings and remote view Mars a million years ago to see what the civilization up there looked like, et cetera, et cetera. It is more real than you can imagine, but this particular document will open your eyes and empower you very much to take control over your reality and your paradigm, because ultimately we are all creating our own reality every second of every day based on the things that were impressed upon us those first 10 years of life, and whatever we've gathered from society and our experiences, whatever we believe to be true, our subconscious is reinforcing that with everything that we see. That's not reality. That's just our reality, the reality we choose to see. And once we change that perspective, especially as it pertains to the UFO phenomena, everything opens up. You will start seeing them. You will start making contact. It is ultimately all about consciousness. And tomorrow's room will be about that. His pedigree is very impressive. He's written 4 books. He was Army Ranger. He was a part of the CIA Gateway Experience, worked with the DIA, the DOD, NSA, CIA, a number of other alphabet agencies, if I'm remembering correctly. And so he's one of the foremost authorities on remote viewing. So it is going to be an incredible conversation. We're all very much looking forward to having it with him. It's tomorrow at 8 p.m. Pacific time, so definitely join for that. And if you want to prep yourself by reading that document, shoot any of the mods a DM, and we'll send it over to you. As always, and once again what Scotty said, if somebody resonates with you, if you enjoy the club, follow it, click the bell. I'm terrible at pinging people, so I can't notify everybody, nor do I really know who all would like to be there. So if you click the bell on my profile or the club, it will notify you. Same with Scotty, Michael, Joe, Cat, Data, Robbie. You'll get notified when they do rooms. Robbie has a great room Wednesday. Scotty does rooms all the time. So it's the easiest way to be able to get notified if you're trying to curate your experience on here, and follow the people who spoke. If they vibe with you, follow the people in the audience next to you. If you're all here and you've been here for any length of time, there is a reason. You're of a similar like mind, or at least a curiosity. And it is good to connect with people who are on that same page, because before places like Clubhouse, this subject matter was a very isolating thing, and very hard to be able to find people who were on that same page, or equally curious or open, or had experiences. This has been a tremendous blessing for everybody in that regard, to be able to build a community like this. So take full advantage of it. And lastly, I want to thank you, Michael, for coming on today. It's really good to see you, man. Good to see you back on here. Your story was absolutely awesome. It was even better to hear it the second time, and take even more away from it, and the perspective and experience you bring. I'm sure I'm speaking for everybody in the room who heard it. It was really awesome and really well said. And so if you have any final thoughts on that you want to share with everybody, please go ahead.
I just want to say thanks for pulling me out of my hole and inviting me back. It always feels good when you do. And telling the stories again helps me, because you guys actually enhance my own experiences and stories with all your knowledge and stuff. And I just think this whole community thing is really cool. So I'll come back anytime you'll have me.
You're always welcome, brother. Appreciate having you here. Joe, Cat, Data, Robbie, did you guys have any closing thoughts before we shut her down? Not all at once, you crazy cats.
I want to thank the people who stuck around for a really long time. I mean, what makes these rooms really great, it's not just the information, because we'd be talking about this shit whether or not you guys are here, but the people that come up and ask the really good questions, and they're intelligent questions, that's what really adds to the value of these rooms. So even if you were just here listening, somebody followed you in and probably got a lot of value out of the room. So I just want to make a shout out to all the people that have been here for a long time. Thank you.
100%. Much love to you all for being here. Scotty, yeah, we'd be talking about this anyway, but we're grateful to have you all here and hanging out for such a long time, because we're about to hit hour 6. So this has been a long one, but yeah, thank you so much to everybody. Joe, I saw you. Yeah, you're unmuted. Go ahead, buddy.
So I'm going to launch a philosophy room. I mean, I already have the club created, but I just need to go through a few more books. And worst case scenario, maybe I'll just pick my favorite of something to talk about for an hour. But yeah, philosophy room coming soon. Epistemic virtues.
Get it, brother. Data? Or did he? I think he might have went to bed, actually. Robbie, my dear, any closing thoughts? They might both be out. And that's the sign then. It is 3:15 in the morning. So on that note,